Zelda Invades Marvel. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 451 Mutant Gene. Mutant genes? What the hell? Tony crossed his arms, sat sideways on the sofa, and looked through the information of S.H.I.E.L.D. Hearing this word, Link was stunned. Nick said, "Our people found several strange mummies when they were excavating the ancient Egyptian pyramids. These mummies died tragically, and they were obviously forced to be placed in coffins against their will. And our people studied these mummies and found something strange." Tony waved his hand. "Needless to say, mutant genes must have been found. Then I ask you directly, what exactly are the so-called mutant genes?" Nick said, "If we knew, we wouldn't come to you. Simply put, these strange mummies, although they look no different from ordinary humans, are not the same as ordinary people at the genetic level. And we just happen to have samples of Wanda and Pete. So we conducted a comparison." Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch looked at each other. Nick just said, "A wonderful thing happened. The genes of Pete and Wanda are also different from those of ordinary people, but they are very similar to the genes of those mummies." Scarlet Witch was shocked. "Does this mean that my brother and I are mummies?" Banner shook his head seriously. "Come on, this logic is completely different. It only shows that you and the ancient Egyptians are the same kind of people." Roger said, "Of course, they have special abilities. They are not ordinary people at all." Nick shook his head. "What I mean is that these strange mummies seem to be the same people as Wanda and Pete. This is a very strange thing. You think this kind of people has existed since the ancient Egyptian period, but in the thousands of years since then, this kind of people disappeared, almost blank. And in the 21st century, we see it in Pete and Wanda. A blank of 5,000 years. Tony's face changed. "You mean, in the early ancient times, there was a kind of people who possessed powers as strong as Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, but for some reason, they disappeared. And in the new century, they were found in Pete and Wanda?" Nick said, "That's right. Tell me what you think." Tony pointed at Banner and said, "Ask him. This is a serious professional doctor of biology." Banner thought for a while and said, "I guess it may be some kind of periodic human genetic change. In the past 5,000 years on Earth, there have been a large number of people with special abilities, or people with mutant genes. In the following thousands of years, mutant genes were suppressed for some reason, perhaps because of changes in cosmic radiation and so on, so mutants disappeared." He looked at the Quicksilver siblings and the appearance of the two of them. "In other words, the low tide of mutant gene hiding has ended. There will be more and more mutants similar to them in the world." Coulson hugged Pepper in his arms and expressed his concern about Banner's speculation. "If this is true, there will be more and more people like them in the world. I'm afraid it's not a good thing for the whole world. If it goes wrong, human society will collapse." Quicksilver frowned. "Why? What's wrong with people like us?" Rogers comforted Quicksilver. "Don't think too much." Tony touched his chin and said, "Coulson is worried about the increase of mutants in the world. In fact, it's the same reason why I don't want to disclose the arc reactor technology." He looked at everyone. "Just imagine, everyone in the world, whether good or bad, officials or criminals, has their own Iron Man. What will the consequences be?" Rogers said in a low voice, "Too much power will lead to the destruction of mankind." Everyone felt heavy after hearing this. Quicksilver looked at his sister, frowned and said, "That is to say, we are different from ordinary humans, and should be called mutants." Nick whispered, "I'm an old black guy. Racial discrimination has accompanied my youth. There is no difference between black, white, and yellow people. It's just the change in skin color. It has caused such a big conflict. Then mutants who are even more different from humans will continue to appear on the earth. It will lead to more serious racial struggles." Tony clapped his hands. "Don't think too much. It's just a guess. So far, the only mutants alive are the brother and sister." Tony smiled and said, "I'm afraid it's not our turn to interfere in such matters. If the activity of mutants has a periodicity of thousands of years, then it is impossible for a large number of mutants to suddenly appear on the earth for no reason. After all, even the destruction of dinosaurs is a long process of hundreds of thousands of years, isn't it? Maybe the third mutant will appear 20 years after the brother and sister appear. What do we have to worry about? Thor laughed and said, leave it to me. Anyway, you will be old and dying by then. If there is a fight on Earth, our Asgard warriors will definitely help to mediate. Rogers looked at Thor suspiciously. Do you have diplomats in Asgard? Thor said, no. Rogers said, then how do you adjust it? Thor said confidently, when the time comes, I will stand in the middle of the two warring parties and yell at them. If you want to fight the other side, you have to beat me first. Vision opened his mouth wide. What a simple adjustment. Thor smiled proudly. Simple is right. You humans have made so many weapons, and only tone is interesting. The rest of the things are only helpful for fighting our own people. In the event of an invasion by foreign enemies, it is not as effective as a close-range fight with real swords and guns. Link was silent. Mutants? How could mutants appear in this timeline? 3 days later, over the city of New York, a boy in a red tights was swaying, rushed into an alley. Several fierce men were blackmailing an office worker. The office worker's face was already bruised and swollen. He was begging vaguely. When the robbers took out their knives, they heard a childish boy's voice behind them. Hey, do you think it's fun? If it's fun, how about letting me join? I'm itching to do it, too. The robber turned around and saw a masked boy in a red tights with his gloomy eyes. He leaned his hands on the wall and tried to strike a handsome pose. The robber looked at the pattern on the masked boy's chest and smiled. Is it Spider-Boy? I know you. You want to be one of the Avengers, right? You have a strong sense of justice, right? He quickly took out his gun and shot at Spider-Man. The robber looked at the pattern on the masked boy's chest and smiled. Is it Spider-Boy? I know you. You want to be one of the Avengers, right? You have a strong sense of justice, right? He quickly took out his gun and shot at Spider-Man. Spider-Man quickly did a backflip to avoid the bullet. He said to the robbers, your bullets don't have eyes. He quickly stepped on the wall and kicked diagonally in the air. Bang, bang, bang. The robbers shot hastily. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 452 Spider-Man. The repeated chapters have been filled with new content. Welcome to read. Thank you for your support. Spider-Man knocked down several robbers in no time. Seeing these originally vicious men lying on the ground and wriggling and groaning like caterpillars, Peter Parker was filled with the joy of justice. He was about to say something cool to the robbed office worker, but turned his head. The office worker had already fled in a panic. Spider-Man. He was a little hurt in his heart, but he was cheerful and talkative by nature, and his frustration soon disappeared. He grumbled to the robber who had lost his fighting power. You said, the job of robbery is extremely unstable, and there is no 5 social insurances, and 1 housing fund. And once you fail, you will go to jail and lose your freedom. What's the good of this job? Why do you do it? The robber groaned. Before I met you, this job was still easy. The Avengers were busy doing big things and couldn't take care of us. What are you going to do? He saw Spider-Man, who took out a few nails from somewhere at random. First, he pressed the robber against the wall. Then he pushed the nails through the edge of their clothes and pushed them against the wall. After a while, Spider-Man hung several robbers on the wall. Then they heard Spider-Man humming a song, and on the wall above them, he wrote 2 lines of words with spray paint. These are the robbers caught by Spider-Man. The robbers stared at Spider-Man angrily. I will not let you go. When I find out what you look like, your parents, your family, I will. Spider-Man said coldly. My parents are dead. You'd better forget it. He squeezed the spray paint tube into a ball and stuffed it into the mouth of the robber who dared to threaten him. Then he flew away. Just when his bad mood was blown away by the high-speed wind, he suddenly saw a blond boy on the roof looking at him. This blond boy was wearing a grey coat with a hood covering his hair. His eyes were blue and beautiful, like a girl. What's even stranger is that on his shoulder, there was a grey-skinned baby-sized girl, and on his other shoulder, there was a strange creature that looked like a big white radish with a leaf mask. Oh my god. Ugh. Spider-Man opened his mouth. It took him a while to recognize who the blond boy was. At the moment he recognized him, Spider-Man lost consciousness and fell down. Link reached out for the ice maker. Where Peter Parker fell, an icicle rose up and supported Spider-Man. Spider-Man lay on the ice in panic and stood up quickly. He watched Link walk towards him. She hurriedly greeted Link. "Hi. I recognize you. You are Link. I also know your two nicknames. I have your poster at home." "Hi, my name is Spider-Man." Midona asked back. "Spider-Boy." Spider-Man hurriedly corrected. "Ahem. It's Spider-Man. Your name is Midona, right? I know you too. The news said you are one of Link's pets." Huh. Midona's face suddenly became horrible. "Who said that? I'm going to smash him and feed him to Peppa." Peppa hurriedly said, "Peppa doesn't eat people. People are not delicious. Peppa only likes to eat fruits." When it comes to eating, Lazy Yaya popped his head out of Link's hair and looked outside curiously. As a result, he only saw a masked boy in a red tights. So he retracted his head in disappointment. Before retracting, he pecked Link's mouth affectionately and then went back to sleep with satisfaction. Spider-Man jumped off the icicle and ran to Link. Scratching his head, he said, "Link, what mission are you doing here?" Spider-Man was very curious. Link shook his head, and Navi popped up to explain. "Link was strolling with the princesses, and then he saw you." Spider-Man said excitedly, "Are you shopping with your girlfriend Zelda? My god. You actually go shopping, Link." Midona tilted her head and looked at Spider-Man. "Your clothes are so stupid. I didn't expect your brain is also stupid." Navi continued to speak for Link. "You just saw you deal with a few robbers. You are very good at it. Do you want to join our Avengers?" Spider-Man turned around excitedly, like a happy puppy. "What? You are willing to let me join the Avengers? Really? You are not some TV station pretending to be Link to deceive me. Impossible." Midona said to Link, "Why do I feel that this Spider-Boy and Tony seem to get along well?" Link looked at Midona in surprise. "This girl has a good eye." Link tried to calm Spider-Man down, and Navi continued, "Do you want to join? In fact, Spider-Man is just a boy who loves life and has a heroic dream, and he does not really have the qualifications of a superhero." In the original plot, Spider-Man also went through a series of tests before finally gaining Tony's trust. But this situation is not a problem for Link. The Avengers are no longer the same as they used to be, and they are no longer the organization that was torn apart by the Civil War in the original time and space. Under the training of many Avengers, Spider-Man will still become a qualified superhero. Of course, he just accompanied the princesses to visit New York and happened to meet Spider-Man, so he wanted to win him over. As a result, Spider-Man hesitated. "But, my studies?" This question stumped Link. He is a Hyrule native, and he forgot that people of this age still have the task of studying. It's not a good idea to let Peter Parker drop out of school to join the Avengers. Midona asked back, "Have you forgotten? There are also two minors in the Avengers." Spider-Man was a little tempted. "They dropped out of school to join the Avengers?" Link winked at Navi, and Navi quickly said, "Oh my. We almost forgot that you still have to go to school. You should join the Avengers after you finish school." As a result, Spider-Man was already emotionally excited by Link's temptation to join the Avengers. He said directly, "I can drop out of school." Damn, what a mistake. Link covered his face, thinking that he had a sudden impulse and didn't want to make Spider drop out of school. At the same time, he had some ideas in his mind. That's right. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch are also minors. They should go to school at this age. Link was going to go back and persuade Rogers and Tony to find a school for Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch so as not to delay the children. Link had the idea of caring for the younger generation like an old father, but he forgot that he was only a 15-year-old child. Navi helped Link again and said, "Don't drop out of school. Don't drop out of school. You can join the Avengers after finishing school. We will ask Stark to give you a set of Spider-Man tights signed by Stark. How about it? HMM." Spider-Man's eyes lit up. "Forget it. I'd better drop out of school." Link. He couldn't help but say, "Be good, study hard. I'll come to find you later." Then he ran away in a hurry. Welcome to Vote and Subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 453, Spider-Man's two new classmates. Back to the 5 princesses. The 5 princesses are the most beautiful scenery on the street, even though this is a bustling modern city. but after they appeared, the atmosphere changed with them, as if they were in an ancient painting about angels in fairyland. Link stepped into the ancient painting. Sky Princess smiled and took Link's hand. She did some processing on her hair, which covered her two long ears well. But just covering her ears can't hide her difference from ordinary people. Just the glowing look is enough to attract the attention of passers-by. Dusk Princess pursed her soft pink lips. She is the one who likes to stay at home the most among the 5 princesses. She is very sensitive to the eyes of passers-by and whispered to Link, "We should go back." Link nodded and took the large number of handbags handed by Zelda. These were bought by the princesses while strolling around shopping. The large number of handbags Link took was almost equal to his weight. Even so, compared to Link, it was just a small pile. Zelda smiled happily. "Link, when you were away, we picked out a lot of clothes for you. Earth is so convenient. In Hyrule, you need to carry heavy rupees to go shopping, which is very troublesome." Peppa fell into the arms of the Washan princess. He vaguely told her about the spider boy he met. They got on Happy's car. Although Happy is now the security director of Stark Group, he is often responsible for picking up Tony or Link and others. For him, the streets of New York are much easier to understand than the surveillance videos at home. Now Happy treats Link with much more respect than before. In the past, he directly regarded Link as a little brat who ate and drank for free at Tony's house, consuming a huge amount. But after a series of events, Happy did not experience it personally, and coupled with the reports of the news media, Link's figure became more and more mysterious in his eyes. Zelda smiled and said, "Happy, this is a small gift we prepared for you. Thank you for taking us around." Happy hurried his men, very respectful, or too respectful. After Zelda found out, she immediately smiled in a troubled manner. "Relax. We are not big shots. No, there are no bigger shots in the world than you. Please forgive me for any offense in the past." Happy was respectful like a Japanese. Happy's favorite TV series were Downton Abbey, and he could not help himself to the aristocratic style. The 5 princesses were the real aristocrats among aristocrats, the royal family from another world. In Happy's eyes, Zelda used to be just a smart little girl who liked to be with Link. But after a series of changes, Zelda's royal temperament from inside to outside became more and more obvious, and people could not help but want to bow to her. Happy said with an exaggerated expression, "I heard from Tony that you are now living in a castle in the sky. It's amazing." Peppa gestured. "Yes, it's amazing. A castle this big." Zelda whispered to Link, "Have we changed now? It seems that the attitudes of the people around us have changed a lot." Link smiled and nodded. Even though he stayed with the princesses for a long time, he could still feel the difference between them every day, because it was too obvious. These 5 princesses, although they have different looks and personalities, but their temperaments are getting closer and closer to the goddess Hylia. Back to the Avengers base. Link seriously proposed to Tony and others that Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch return to school and complete their studies. Rogers agreed. "Yes, for children, learning is very important. We actually ignored these." Link is still careful. The Quicksilver brothers and sisters changed their faces and looked at Link with an expression of disbelief. At the same time, they were desperately thinking in their minds, did they offend Link in some way? Quicksilver said hurriedly, "We don't need to study." Scarlet Witch also nodded quickly. "That's right. We already." Natasha said coldly, "You don't even recognize all the English." Quicksilver said, "We are not Americans." Rogers and Tony looked at each other. "Yes, we should arrange a school for you 2 brothers and sisters. After all, it can't be a world disaster every day. You have plenty of time to experience campus life." Banner agreed. "That's right. It's crucial not to be out of touch with society. You are still young and need a normal life." Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch looked at each other anxiously. Not good. They seemed to have been unilaterally announced to go to school. Quicksilver looked at Link. "Link is not that old. Younger than us. Why doesn't he have to go to school?" Rogers asked back. "Not that young. Have you ever seen a child over 100 years old?" Tony said, "Yes, Link is over the age to go to school." And, Tony tapped the sofa with his fingers, "Link can speak English, Portuguese, Japanese and Chinese now. He is very smart." "Okay. And you guys, I think you just want to avoid studying, right?" The brother and sister's faces changed. Tony guessed it right. Tony smiled and said, "Captain will contact your parents later. They should be happy to see you go to school in the United States." Scarlet Witch was unwilling to give up, but our reputation is already very big. Many people know us. If we suddenly go to school, it will cause a lot of trouble. Banner smiled and said, "Don't worry. It's actually quite easy for you to go to school without being noticed by others." When Tony was in college, he made a kind of glasses that can modify the outline of the eyes and make a person not look like himself. You can wear glasses without prescription. Just when Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver looked at each other and decided to die rather than surrender, Tony snapped his fingers. "If you go to school, I can consider giving you pocket money. Deal." The next day, Peter Parker, who had already left his identity as Spider-Man and returned to his daily life, was carrying a school bag to geography class. He heard classmates whispering that a student had transferred in, and they were twins. Both brothers and sisters were handsome and beautiful. Parker chatted with his fat friend with a smile. When two strange men and women walked into the class exclaimed in amazement. Parker opened his mouth wide. Parker's fat friend whispered exaggeratedly, "This girl is so cute. I can't help it. I want to write her a love letter." The special glasses that can hide the appearance can block others, but they can't block the little spider with strong observation ability. Parker immediately knew that two big figures came to their school. Avengers, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 454, Sword Shadow Secret Chamber. Quicksilver whispered to Scarlet Witch, "Wanda, you didn't feel it, but there's a man behind you staring at you. He seems to like you." Scarlet Witch also whispered to Quicksilver, "I noticed it, but he looked at you more than at me. So, he should like you." Quicksilver got goosebumps. "Don't talk nonsense." They both turned their heads at the same time and saw Parker staring at the brother and sister like a thief. The three of them stared at each other across the messy classroom. All three of them were a little embarrassed. Scarlet Witch suddenly became nervous. "I feel that this boy is a little unusual. Is he an agent sent by some other organization to monitor us?" Quicksilver shook his head. "Isn't it possible? Boss Stark would never let this happen. He prefers to meet others rather than being seen by others." "Do you think he was sent by Boss Stark to see us?" Scarlet Witch said, "It doesn't seem like it. Boss Stark would never send such a stupid person to monitor us." When the brother and sister who were unwilling to learn discussed Spider-Man, they didn't realize that they were the fools and Spider-Man was a genius with excellent grades. They were guessing what Parker was thinking. And Parker was also guessing in his heart, "Why hasn't Link sent me the Spider-Man suit yet?" Parker's eyes suddenly lit up. "That's right. These two people are probably sent by Link to test me. That's right. The Avengers need alert personalities and keen observation." When the two parties were suspicious of each other, Vision found Tony and Rogers with tears in his eyes. Tony said softly, "What's wrong, my child?" Somehow, Tony has been feeling more and more that he is getting older, and it's time to have a child. So he speaks more gently to the younger generation. Not to mention Vision, his own daughter. Vision said pitifully, "I want to go to school too." Tony smiled, "You don't need to go to school. There is no school in this world that is qualified to teach you. You are the fruit of my wisdom." Vision said timidly, "Wanda and the others went to school. I feel very lonely." Tony smiled and said, "You can go find Link, no, Loki and Falcon to play." He wanted to say Link, but he immediately realized that Vision has always been afraid of Link. Although the relationship between the two has improved, but Vision still regards Link as a scourge and dares not approach him. Vision said, "Falcon often runs around, and Loki always laughs strangely in the bedroom. I dare not get close." Natasha and Rogers looked at each other warily. Could it be that Loki is planning this conspiracy again? Loki appeared from nowhere and said sullenly, "I heard it. You already think I'm plotting to seize the Earth? Don't think too much. There is no such thing. In fact, I'm plotting the entire galaxy. Cough cough. In fact, I'm considering changing myself to a new hairstyle. Goodbye." Then he slipped away like the wind. This made Rogers and others more vigilant. This guy, he better not mess around. Indeed, Vision's best friends are Quicksilver and his sister. The two of them ran to school, leaving Vision alone. Tony nodded. Forget it. You should kill sometime. You should go to school with Quicksilver and the others tomorrow. Boss Stark, you are so nice. Vision left happily. Tony smiled with relief, and then his eyes turned to Rogers beside him. Captain, I remember that you didn't have a high level of education, and it was more than 70 years ago. How about I enroll you in adult education? I can't bear to see the Avengers signature figure being illiterate. Rogers moved his lips and said, go to hell. At this time, Falcon came over, with a strange look on his face. He came to Rogers, and whispered in his ear, found it. Rogers' face changed, and he stood up quickly. Tony asked, what did you find? The huge diamond that Link lost. Happy was so respectful to Link and others. There was another reason. When Link fought the rock giant before, the rock giant exploded a super large diamond. Link threw the diamond directly in the lobby of Stark Group. It became a strange landscape. Happy was in charge of guarding, and the lobby was full of cameras, guarding 24 hours a day. It stands to reason that no one could steal a giant diamond with a diameter of 2 meters. As a result, this kind of thing happened. The giant diamond disappeared and could not be found no matter what. Happy trembled and used a computer to calculate. He found that he would have to work for 20 years without eating or drinking to pay for this diamond. Tony was indeed very generous and was really good to Happy, but Happy's salary was still at a normal level. After all, he was the head of security, and too high a salary would cause many adverse effects. Happy was afraid that Link would ask him for compensation. Otherwise, Happy would have to sell himself to Tony as a slave for the rest of his life. It was almost the same now anyway. Rogers forced a smile. It's a small matter. Then he and Falcon hurried away without telling Tony anything. Falcon said found. It means, Bucky, the Winter Soldier, found it. Found it. A coincidence. This sentence also appeared in the Sky King city. Twilight Princess took the dim candle and took the princess and Link to search deep in the palace. They came to a secret room. Twilight Princess said, there is a sword used by an ancient hero hidden in it. It may be helpful to you. She smiled at Link. Tonight, Link lay couldn't beat the sword practice time. The princesses and the 4 heroes watched as a pastime, and sometimes Princess Washan would come forward to fight with Link. Link's sword moves were simple and unadorned, but extremely efficient. Princess Washan's swordsmanship was gorgeous and ethereal, more like dancing than fighting. So the scene was pleasing to the eye. As she watched, the Dusk Princess remembered a collection in the castle. It was a sword used by an ancient hero. Those who touched the hilt of the sword could see the fights and battles that the ancient hero had experienced. Those with talent and luck could get a significant improvement. So she led everyone to the secret room. Faye floated out of the master sword and looked at Link expressionlessly. My lord Link, I feel a faint fluctuation of a sleeping sword. There seems to be a strong soul inside. The Dusk Princess opened the door. The secret room was empty. As soon as the door was opened, 2 rows of lights on the wall lit up blue. The secret room was empty, with only a rusty longsword inserted on a regular triangular stone platform in the center. Zelda was puzzled. This secret room should not have been opened for hundreds of years. Why is the air not turbid at all? Twilight Princess explained. This room is alive. In order to cultivate a new generation of heroes, the ancient hero danced with the sword in this room once, and the sword shadow still exists in the air here. Only heroes with pure hearts can see it. Welcome to vote and subscribe to support genuine works. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 455 The Brave Man of Time. The Sky Princess sniffed, feeling a little afraid, and hunched her shoulders and said, it feels like there's some danger here. The Twilight Princess nodded solemnly, her clear eyes recalling some things. When I was a child, my father once told me that the sword shadow left by this brave man is so upright and pure that anyone with even a little evil thought in their heart would find it difficult to step into the room. Otherwise, they would be hurt by the sharp sword energy emerging from it. But in this world, how many people don't have any evil thoughts in their hearts? So several lives have been lost here, and since then, this sword shadow secret room has been sealed. Midona poked her chin with her finger. People without evil thoughts? There are very few such people. Link, tell me yourself, do you have any evil thoughts? Tell me clearly, did you do anything shameful when you were secretly dating the fifth Zelda, the first princess? Everyone's eyes were focused on the first princess. Princess Washang had a confused smile on her face, looking back and forth between the first princess and Link. I didn't expect you guys. The first princess looked calm, don't think too much. She didn't even say anything to explain. She was a girl who stood tall and proud. But the Sky Princess still caught the first princess's gradually red ears in her two white hands, which had been placed behind her waist, and playing with each other anxiously. Navi was full of confidence in Link. I believe you. Link nodded and stepped into the secret room. The sword shadow suddenly flew over like a flock of birds, lingering around Link, and a little breeze lifted Link's hair. The violent and sharp sword energy suddenly appeared out of nothing, and filled the empty secret room. People finally understood why the secret room was so empty. Of course, that was all. Although the sharp sword energy filled in front of Link and lifted his soft golden hair, it was just that. Not even a strand of Link's hair was cut off. Obviously, there are very few people in the world who have pure hearts and no evil thoughts. But Link is one of them. Then, the Washang princess also stepped in carefully. Her body was smooth and blooming. Strands of light beams were like silk woven with clouds, forming a gorgeous battle skirt on the Washang princess's slender but beautiful body. The small silver boots stepped on the ancient stone bricks. The Washang princess looked around with her eyes. Her face was beautiful but alert. Then the sword energy rose again and fell again. Obviously, her heart was also tested by the sword energy of the ancient warrior. She couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief and stroked the crown of thorns on her head with a smile, revealing a touching smile. I haven't worn this crown for a long time, and it feels a little clumsy. The first generation princess still looked energetic and stepped into the secret room. The sword energy disappeared in a flash, and the first generation princess smiled. It seems that I'm the same. Midona looked stunned, watching the 5 princesses present, who stepped into the secret room one after another without any injury. Gradually, she opened her mouth and muttered to the Twilight Princess, "You are not lying to us, are you?" Zelda walked in, pointed at the dried blood on the ground and said, "This is obviously true. Look at the uneven blood stains." Obviously, the former took less than 1 step and blood splattered 5 steps. Finally, Mipha suddenly jumped in, and nothing happened. She smiled happily. "Mipha?" the princesses exclaimed. "When did you follow?" Mipha said naturally, "I have been following you. Maybe my voice is soft, so you hear it every day." When she saw the princesses and Link sneaking into the depths of the palace, she followed carefully. Mipha came to Link like a little wife, showed Link a lovely smile, pulled Link's wrist, and a series of actions were smooth and flowing, without giving the other princesses a chance to react. Navi said with a little surprise, "Well, that means that everyone here can pass the standard of the ancient warriors." Twilight Princess smiled and said, "I'm surprised too." Link came to the rusty long sword. Faye said to Link in a buzzing voice, "My lord Link. This sword gives Faye the feeling that it is very similar to the predecessor of the Master Sword, the Goddess Sword." Indeed, Link also felt that it was somewhat similar. The shape of the Master Sword is a classic purple 2-winged hilt that has been maintained for thousands of years. But the Master Sword was not originally like this, but more ancient. Just like the rusty sword in front of him. The rusty sword seemed to have experienced an extremely fierce battle. Under the oxidized yellow rust, the blade was uneven like a split brick. There were also some subtle signs. Obviously, this rusty sword has gone through several processes of breaking the sword and recasting it again. The ups and downs that this sword has experienced are like a huge book as thick as a palm. Twilight Princess whispered, "Link, if you try to raise this sword, the ancient spirit will come to test you." Link nodded. He held the rusty sword in one hand. Boom, such a sound came to his ears. He blinked, and everything in front of him turned pure white. Mipha, Zelda, and Midona disappeared one after another. He seemed to have traveled through time again, and came to a different world. This world seemed to have nothing left, except the shallow puddles under his feet and the white fog all around. But here, Link felt a familiar sense of oppression. That's right. This sense of oppression is very similar to the pressure he felt when he first pulled out the Master Sword. A figure appeared in the distance, and Link was ready to fight. I saw a skeleton swordsman wearing heavy armor, holding a shield and a long sword, walking out of the fog. And he made a gesture to invite Link to fight. This skeleton said nothing, of course. He didn't have any sound parts, silent and straightforward. This personality is very similar to Link. Link did not ask anything, and took out the Master Sword and Crystal Hylia shield from the weapon space. Bang! The two swords collided lightly in the air. This was the signal for the battle to begin. Crack. Link's eyes were stern, and he thrust forward with his sword. The skeleton swordsman kicked his foot, and there was a crisp sound on his rotten kneecap. He dodged it easily with a light backflip. He stepped on the ground, and charged with his shield. Link saw the weakness of the skeleton swordsman, and stabbed again with his sword. Snap. Shield counter. The skeleton swordsman deflected Link's Master Sword and shield. This was the first time that Link was deflected by someone else. Link's body stiffened, and the skeleton swordsman stabbed again. As expected, it only hit Link's heart. The skeleton swordsman suddenly spoke, "Warrior from the future. This is the first move I teach you. Stab." Chapter 456. The sharp edge reappears. The skeleton swordsman opened his jaw slightly and spoke a few words in ancient Hylian. But strangely, this scene was not scary at all. Even in the skeleton state, the skeleton swordsman was not gloomy and scary, but like a living person. Life and death, things full of contradictions, are incomparably harmonious in the skeleton swordsman. But strangely, his sword pierced Link's chest. Link not only did not feel pain, but the part that was stabbed was warm. Link hurriedly retreated, prepared to fight again. Warrior from the future. This is the first move I will teach you. Stab? Question mark? Link can be called the strongest swordsman in the world, and the skill of stab is the most basic move in sword skills. This skeleton swordsman actually wants to teach Link this? Link gritted his teeth. The tricks used by the skeleton swordsman just now did not have any skills in them. He dodged his attack, shield countered, and then took the opportunity to stab a sword. There was nothing fancy about the action. Easily defeated Link, the top swordsman. This made Link feel competitive. He wielded the sword and shield again, and exchanged swords with the skeleton swordsman. The battle began. Thrust. Link waved his hand to knock away the skeleton swordsman's long sword, took a step forward, and suddenly stabbed again. But it was a hair's breadth away, and the skeleton swordsman easily dodged it again with a backflip. Link followed closely behind, shaking with the skeleton swordsman. The two's fighting methods were short and fast. Link's eyes began to see the perspective of the gods, and the battle perspective also became a third party. The skeleton swordsman's movement slowed down quickly. Link shook out a sword flower casually, and attacked him with more violent sword skills. But soon, he was hit by the skeleton swordsman again, and the position did not change, still in the heart. Link was not convinced and fought again. He was stabbed in the heart again. The skeleton swordsman did not mock or encourage him, but just stood there quietly, waiting for Link to challenge again. Since he traveled through time, this was the first time that Link was defeated so cleanly, without any room for maneuver. He was unwilling to give up, his eyebrows raised, and he launched an attack again. 1 battle. 2 battles. 3 battles. The skeleton swordsman defeated Link again and again. Link first became more and more angry, and his face even began to be truly full of murderous intent. But when he was extremely annoyed, he continued to be defeated by the skeleton swordsman. Fight. 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 The anger on his face also disappeared, and Link's expression was full of confusion and entanglement. These skeleton swordsmen saw his eyes, and no one knew what he was thinking. They just defeated Link again and again. Fight. 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 The confusion also disappeared. For some reason, and I don't know when it started, in the constant failure, Link's expression became much more relaxed, and even a smile hung on the corner of his mouth. These were because he was concentrating on fighting, so he couldn't notice them. Just like a child playing a game, he couldn't notice the flow of time. Fight. 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 Crack. After almost 1,000 failures, Link turned the sword and stabbed the skeleton swordsman's chest smoothly, at the heart. because this sword was too smooth and too clean. It shocked Link so much that he woke up from his vague state of confusion. He realized that he had defeated the skeleton swordsman. The skeleton swordsman silently put away his sword and stared at him with his dark eyes. Just now, Link had used the purest stab. Link bowed his head deeply and thanked the skeleton swordsman. He had understood the skeleton swordsman's intention. After continuous failures and setbacks, Link's idea of gaining power from the rusty sword had completely dissipated. Instead, he defeated the skeleton swordsman and vented his frustration. In the end, he even lost the desire to compete. Link continued to fight. In the aimless battle, he was finally able to use a stab as clean as the skeleton swordsman. The power of his body is incomparably pure. In the battles over the years, Link's power has soared to a terrifying level. Even Calamity Ganon can hardly block Link's heavy blow. Link's power even exceeds the limit of what he can control. And Link doesn't know this. He is still looking for new power in a daze, like a glutton who is never satisfied. And with the help of the skeleton swordsman, Link's inner strength has also grown rapidly in these nearly 1,000 failures. Link also unified his power in the high-intensity battle as never before. It is precisely because of the unified power that he was able to defeat the skeleton swordsman. The skeleton swordsman suddenly broke apart, and the skeleton fragments condensed in the air and suddenly formed a dummy that looked exactly like Link. The dummy said, "Do you want to know your current power? Then let's test it. This is you who just entered the dream of time. Come and fight him once." Link nodded. Then a dummy that looked exactly like him attacked swiftly. Looking at the dummy attacking, Link could clearly feel the sluggishness of the dummy. The dummy had great power, but he was also restrained by the power, and the edge of the sword was dim. Link gently bypassed it and naturally sent a sword into the heart of the dummy. This surprised him a little. It was too easy, wasn't it? He thought to himself, is this me who just came here? He understood that the skeleton swordsman had sharpened Link, this person, and this dull sword that had already lost its edge. Now Link can easily defeat the Link who just entered. The skin on the dummy's face began to peel off, and it turned into the appearance of the skeleton swordsman again. The skeleton swordsman said, "Future brave man, you have learned stab, please leave." Before Link could express his gratitude again, the white mist in front of him suddenly disappeared. In a blink of an eye, he returned to the real world. And he was shocked to find that he had pulled out the rusty sword inserted in the center of the secret room without knowing when. The rusty sword was shaking slightly. Mipha exclaimed, "Link, this sword seems to be about to explode." Midona laughed and said, "Don't be ridiculous. How could a sword explode?" Bang, the light exploded. Oh my god. The sword really exploded. Midona hid behind Link pitifully. The light disappeared. The rusty sword in Link's hand suddenly disappeared, and the bright sword edge was exposed, as if it had just been forged, and the hot temperature could still be felt on it. Twilight Princess was surprised. "You awakened this sword of the ancient hero." Link saw his slightly surprised blue eyes reflected on the sword. It's just that the eyes in the sword, for some reason, are deeper than Link's own. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 457 The End. The sword of the ancient hero? Link was startled and first turned to look at Faye. Faye was very calm, like a swaying forget-me-not. This was not Faye's behavior. Generally speaking, if Link held other weapons, including Thor's hammer, thunderbow, etc., Faye would be jealous and throw a tantrum at Link. Only in front of the Dragon Soul Greatsword would Faye behave better, because if Faye dared to throw a tantrum again, she would anger Fangire. Although Faye was only a sword spirit, she also knew that first come first served. She didn't want to conflict with Fangire, Midona and others. But today, Faye saw Link pick up the sword of the ancient hero, but she didn't show any jealousy at all. Faye said, "My lord Link, this sword has the same properties as the Exorcist sword." Indeed, the sword of the ancient hero gave Link the feeling that it was indeed very similar to the Master Sword. But unlike the Master Sword, the ancient hero's edge was more restrained. The Twilight Princess looked at the sword of the ancient hero, then shifted her gaze to Link. With a beautiful curve on her lips, she smiled with relief and said, "The sword of the ancient hero has been pulled out by the hero again. This is a symbol of good luck." Mipha, however, stared at the sword of the ancient hero raised by Link. and said somewhat uneasily, "This is a weapon. Even the most sacred weapon is still a weapon. The reappearance of a weapon means that there will be a place for this sharp blade in the world. I don't think this is a good sign." The Sky Princess put her hands behind her back and walked over with a smile, as if dancing. She said happily, "Don't worry about good or bad omens. This sword is very beautiful. It suits Link very well, don't you think?" Zeng. The sword of the ancient hero suddenly shone brightly, and it fluctuated like a heartbeat. Zelda opened her mouth slightly. "Is this sword responding to you?" The Sky Princess said in surprise. "No way." They had misunderstood. A powerful voice from the skeleton swordsman burst out from the blade of the ancient warrior's sword. "The oldest demon king will awaken, and he must be sealed with the oldest sword." Link's heart was awed, and the sword released a strong light, rushing straight into Faye's body. Faye's eyes turned white, and she released a video on the ceiling of the secret room. Princess Washan raised her eyebrows. "What is that?" In the image on the ceiling, in the depths of a starry galaxy, a dark red evil light as thick as oil suddenly gushed out. Resentment. Hatred. Curse this dazzling world. The heirs who possess the blood of the goddess and the soul of the warrior, bear your fate. A hideous demon head crawled out from the center of the universe, when the stars were the brightest. The dark golden long hair ignited a dark green flame, corroding everything. The demon claws covered with dark silver scales supported the body, and crawled out of the darkness completely. Princess Sky covered her mouth and exclaimed, "Demon King, the Ender." Midona looked around in panic. "Demon King? Who is this? Hasn't Ganon been banned? Where did this guy come from?" Zelda said in a deep voice, "The Ender, according to legend, was defeated by the ancient hero and sealed in the darkness. And his curse and resentment did not dissipate. After tens of millions of years, this led to the birth of the Demon King Ganon. The Ender is the culprit of everything." Midona covered her face and cried miserably. "What? Ganon's father came to the door. Will Ganon's grandfather also appear after he is defeated?" Nori said, "It's not that chaotic. The Ender is already the source of evil." The ancient hero's sword once again made a strong voice. "Future heroes, are you willing to take on the mission of saving everything?" Link nodded, and with a force on his right hand, the ancient hero's sword turned into particle fragments, entered into the weapon space. He asked Navi to tell everyone, "Let's go to Goddess Hylia and ask her." So everyone came to the church and saw this scene. The crystal statue of Goddess Hylia still stood in the center of the church, but the only half of her wings left were gone. Link immediately recalled the scene when the hero was resurrected. He vaguely saw that the wings of the goddess statue were broken. It seems that there is a price to bring the hero back to life. This was the first time Link came to the goddess statue after the battle. A faint light appeared on the goddess statue, and an ethereal voice appeared in everyone's ears. "Link, you are finally willing to come to see me?" Link nodded. The ethereal voice transmitted by the goddess statue was a little relieved. "Ganon has been frustrated by your bravery again and again, and his hatred has accumulated again and again. The sleeping source of evil has been awakened. But this does not mean that the world will fall into a darker situation. On the contrary, the more rampant the darkness is, the more the darkness will end. This is the achievement created by you and your companions. The stars will remember your efforts and courage." Link's left hand was lifted up by an invisible force, and the two-wing mark of the goddess on his wrist has now turned deep red. The will of the goddess will further awaken the power of sealing. The two-wing mark suddenly scattered into countless feathers, dancing on the wrist, and finally condensed into a new shape, a pair of clenched palms, maintaining a praying posture. The power of sealing hidden in the will of the goddess will restrain the dark enemies who are hostile to you. Use this to seal the end. The light of the goddess statue disappeared. Link looked at the pattern on his wrist, and he could feel a gentle and powerful power in it. The Twilight Princesses looked at the bright stars in the sky. They were at a high altitude, so they could see more clearly. The galaxy at this angle was theirs alone. It was late at night, and the western hemisphere had fallen into a deep sleep. If someone couldn't sleep, they would rather look at the sky. They could see if there was a dirty and dim energy spreading deep in the bright starry sky. Zelda calmly pulled Link's wrist and said, "We just need to prepare for the battle. Let the Ender come. It's almost dawn, and the night is always short. It's the same, whether it's Earth or Hyrule." Nielon was rippling in the solar system. He first felt the malice from the universe, as if a dark force that was purer and more condensed by Ganon had awakened. This forbidden entry made Nielon let out an angry and slightly frightened dragon roar. But then, Nielon also felt a clear and sincere energy wave escaping from the earth. Even at such a long distance, he could hear it clearly and feel the stability brought by this energy wave. He was no longer worried. Wherever the light leads, the sword goes. Welcome to Vote and Subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 458, Black Eats Black. In the center of the universe, the huge body of the Ender sat on an abandoned planet. Below him were the remaining lives of the planet, all looking up under the power of darkness, worshipping the Ender. They longed for redemption from the Evildoers who destroyed their planet. The sword of the Ender, Gerasim, took on a human form and transformed into a slender man. My master, look how the world is trembling because of you. We should carry this power and kill directly to the planet where Link is hiding. Completely defeat this puppet of the goddess Hylia. Then gradually let the world fall into the embrace of darkness. Your servant Gerasim is willing to cut off everything for you. Gerasim knelt on one knee with a fanatical look on his face, looking at his master eagerly. After a long time, the one of the End uttered a low voice like hell. No, now is not the time to fight. My eyes can see through all the false things. I saw that Link, the brave man of this era, has regained the brave sword that can seal me. Don't attack when the light is at its peak. Gerasim gritted his teeth. I can't wait to avenge that year. Master, you just need to recuperate and wake up from the end of darkness. You, the most ancient demon, need to restore your strength. Just watch how I lead the minions of darkness and gather the thugs in this world to destroy that blue planet in one fell swoop. The one of the End stood up. Looking at the endless sky, he said loudly, okay, you carry your anger and rage and give a heavy blow to that overconfident Link. As for me, he saw Ganon imprisoned by Zelda's power, and the Ender said, my cursed incarnation, the only man of the Groot clan. He was useless, and was sealed many times, suppressed by the mortal warrior who was far weaker than him. I want to punish Ganon. He failed my wish. But the resentment and hatred nourished in the origin of his body are exactly what I transformed into a stronger sample. The Ender disappeared from the planet immediately. The magic sword Gerasim looked at the remaining creatures on the planet with a grim smile, raised his hands high, and brought down the power of the End. The surviving life on the planet still could not escape the final crusade. These lives at the center of the universe were quickly twisted under the interference of the power of the End, and their skin hardened into crocodile-like armor, with sharp barbs protruding from their arms. Gerasim looked at the creatures he had transformed with great satisfaction. He laughed loudly. My thorn guards, work for me. At the edge of the universe, the Ender arrived in an instant. Looking at Ganon, who was sealed by Zelda, before he fully woke up. Ganon's red eyes were twitching with anger, and he stared at the Ender. You appeared in my dream. You the Ender looked down at Ganon. I'm darkness itself, the most ancient will of death in this world. He casually broke the seal left by Zelda. On Earth. Except for the first princess, the other 4 princesses vomited blood for no apparent reason. Zelda looked horrified. The Ender broke the seal that controlled Ganon. Link clenched his fists, and Mipha hurriedly treated the 4 princesses. Since Mipha was resurrected, her power of protection is not only effective for Link, it will have an effect on all Hyrule people. Link looked at the starry sky, and the first princess said, get ready to fight, we are with you. At the edge of the universe, Ganon was released, and he roared wildly. He released his curse power in the endless void at the end of the universe. Ganon looked at the Ender coldly. Now is the time for us to take revenge. Give me strength quickly, so that I can completely gather my strength. Only in this way can I. Soon, Ganon found something wrong. Because he saw that the Ender who created him did not have any kindness in his expression, and his eyes were full of greed. It was just like Ganon at the beginning. The Ender looked up and down at Ganon. What a pure power. You are the crystallization of my resentment, but your curse power is far superior to my End power. He showed a dry smile like a zombie on his face. If I devour you, I will be much stronger than Goddess Hylia. Ganon gathered the sage's sword in his hand and looked at the Ender with fear. This is your goal. The Ender's greedy eyes actually revealed great fear. He is the oldest demon king. When he was sealed by the ancient hero, he cast an eternal curse. And Ganon is the incarnation of this curse. After experiencing multiple reincarnations, Ganon has transformed into a power whose essence is far more twisted than the Ender. Even the oldest Demon King is a little scared of this. At the same time, he also became greedy for the curse power of Ganon's essence. Ganon gritted his teeth, turned around and prepared to escape, intending to escape directly to another time and space. But he immediately found that his body had lost the ability to move. The Ender raised his hand. His eyes were cold, like a gust of cold wind from an ancient cave. I created you. You belong to me. He opened his mouth wide, and the corners of his mouth tore apart, almost splitting his body in half. Ganon yelled frantically, "You can't. This world." The Ender swallowed Ganon like a snake. Boom. The Ender's face trembled with excitement, just as he was about to digest Ganon. His expression was as if he had been bombarded. "Hey, are you resisting my resentment?" The Ender's body quickly disintegrated, with a smile on his face. It turned into a black storm, biting each other with the violent power of Ganon's curse in his body. On Earth, Zelda and others were repaired by Mipha because of the broken seal. Zelda hugged the somewhat weak Mipha and then said to Link, "Since the Ender has revived, we can't just sit and wait for death. We need to free the other 3 beasts as soon as possible. Use the 4 beasts system to create the first line of defense." Link nodded. The other 3 heroes who were still awake at this time came over. Libel yawned and said, "I haven't slept for 100 years. I forgot how to close my eyes." Darkle looked at Link with his small eyes. Although the Gideon people have always been known for their simplicity and honesty, Darkle is a rough but meticulous person. He said, "It can be seen that new evil seems to be gathering. But who cares? Since our heroes have been resurrected, it is not for a few more years of food. Just do it." Zabo stretched gracefully. "I haven't fought for a long time. I really miss the feeling of fighting in the desert." Libel looked up and said, "Princess, tell me, what do we need to do next?" The first princess smiled sweetly. "Of course the first thing we have to do is, it's so late, go take a shower and go to bed. We'll talk about it tomorrow, if there is anything." The 3 heroes. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 459. An unprecedented and unrepeatable huge project. Ancient One has lived for so many years and has experienced many storms. Earth has encountered several disasters that are more terrible than Loki's invasion of Earth. No one knows that it was Ancient One who solved them silently. Like Captain America, she has a determined heart, but in her soul state, she still feels a sense of fear from the root of her heart when she sees the tragic appearance of the Enderman and Ganon eroding each other. She was commissioned by Zelda to come to the edge of the universe to investigate the situation of the sealed Ganon. But things are always unexpected. The end of darkness is a deeper darkness. A demon king who is far more powerful than the current Ganon suddenly appeared. But just when Ancient One thought that the 2 demon kings were going to join forces to destroy the world, he didn't expect that they would actually have an internal conflict. The 2 extremely dark wills bit each other and wanted to devour each other. "I hope you will die together." Ancient One carefully concealed the fluctuations of his soul and tried to avoid being seen by the 2 demon kings. Her eyes recovered from the panic a little, and her calm thoughts began to work. Before fighting with Link, Zelda and others, the dark side started the war first. Maybe we can benefit from it, Ancient One thought. She saw the fragments of Zelda's light power dissipating in the sky. Due to the struggle between the 2 dark forces, this space is extremely dirty. If a normal person stayed here before he was suffocated to death by lack of oxygen, he would first die of a crazy brain and mental breakdown. Due to the strong oppression, the shattered light power was reassembled and condensed into a palm-sized light. Just like the last bright star in a desperate dying universe struggling hard. Ancient One carefully absorbed the light power and used his body to hide the fluctuations of the light power. Ancient One said softly, "Princess Zelda, who is far away on the other side of the universe, can you hear my voice?" The power of light trembled slightly, and a calm female voice different from the 4 princesses came. "Yes, I'm Zelda, Master Ancient One. What did you see?" Because the first princess had not come to Link when she came over, Ancient One did not know the voice of the first princess. She hesitated for a while and continued. An evil life form called the End is trying to devour Ganon, and Ganon is fighting against it. The first princess hurriedly told Link the information sent by Ancient One. Midona clapped her two small hands fiercely. Great. Let them kill each other. One dies and the other is injured. At that time, we will let Strange teleport us over and kill the injured one. Link did not expect that before he fought with the End would choose to devour Ganon first. Ganon actually became a line of defense to buffer the End. This is a pleasant surprise. Cell listened to Midona's advice. No, we can't easily set foot at the edge of the universe. The situation at the edge of the universe is very complicated. That's where Ganon was born, and the power of his curse has polluted that corner. If Link fights there, he will be in great danger. Mipha bit her lip and said to Link, two demons are fighting. How similar is this to the original scene? Navi asked, Mipha, what are you talking about? Libba snorted. Of course it was the day when Link saved the world. When Link and Ganon were fighting, our four heroes controlled the four sacred beasts and severely damaged Ganon. Zappo smiled slightly. It's the same now. It's just that the one who fights against Ganon has become an outdated villain. Zelda lowered her head and pondered for a moment, then looked up suddenly with a firm look. Yes. This is a good opportunity. The End of the world is fighting against Ganon. While they are fighting to the extreme, use the power of the four sacred beasts. Suppress them together. Darkle touched his head, but Ganon and the Ender are on the other side of the universe. The power of the four beasts can't cover such a long distance. Unless we move the four beasts to the galaxy closest to Ganon. The Sky Princess smiled and said, this is a technical problem. Just leave it to the scientists on Earth. Maybe Tony and his team can create a machine that can radiate the power of the four beasts to a farther place. The edge of the universe. Tony was awakened by Pepper, who was sleeping soundly. He smiled and said, why, are you still not satisfied? Pepper blushed and poked the phone under Tony's nose. Zelda's anxious voice came from the microphone. Tony, I'm sorry to bother you so late. Tony coughed. Zelda? Calling so late? Did you quarrel with Link? Don't worry, if you are bullied by Link, as your friend, I will definitely stand up for you and beat Link. Cough cough. Reason with Link and let him stop bullying you. Tony didn't know why he felt that he was getting more and more sincere when facing Link. Zelda said, a demon king scarier than Ganon has appeared. Tony laughed. Really? The movie of Hero Link is a big hit, so we can set up a new villain and start filming the second part, right? Zelda, I'm serious. Tony, a demon king scarier than Ganon? Zelda, Ganon was created by this demon king. Tony covered his forehead. Late in the night please. This kind of thing. Cough cough. I feel like something in my arc reactor is short-circuited. Pepper said silently. No, you're just panicking. Because that damn arc reactor and shrapnel have been removed by you. Zelda told Tony the reason for the incident and the solution they were going to use. Tony curled his lips and said, you think too highly of me. A frequency conversion device of this scale must be at least 300 years ahead of human technology. Zelda said disappointedly. No. Sure enough, our ideas are somewhat taken for granted. Haha. Tony laughed. Don't worry, you can think highly of me, because I'm Tony Stark. A frequency conversion device that can condense the power of the four beasts and shoot it to the edge of the universe, right? Of course I can make it. Now we just have to worry about how to make Pepper sell this expensive frequency conversion device to a fool after using it once. Pepper smiled. There was a cheer from Zelda. Great. Tony smiled, but his face was a little solemn. After ending the call with Zelda, Pepper frowned with worry. She asked, can you really make that frequency conversion device that spans the entire universe? Tony shook his head decisively. Rely on me? Impossible. Pepper, then agree to it. Tony's expression was serious. It must be done. There is no other choice. Humanity, the Earth, and even this universe. If it can only be saved by aliens like Link and Zelda, what a desperate thing it would be. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Thanks to Glory of the Northern Gods for the support of 500 starting coins. Chapter 460, Recruitment from the Darkness. In the morning, the first princesses joined everyone to liberate the Wind Beast. The Quinjet was undergoing its last overhaul after being badly damaged. Zelda and the other princesses discussed the tactics of the Wind Beast and asked Libba about the details of when he was killed by the Wind Beast. Libba was a very proud birdman, and now he had to explain how he was killed by the wind disaster Ergonon, so he was very ashamed. Even the bird feathers on his face turned red. As for Link, thinking about the Ender, he felt that the things he would deal with next were like a mountain pressing on his shoulders. Once the Ender completely devoured Ganon, what kind of existence would it become? Link's way of relieving stress was to practice swordsmanship. Every time he held the Master Sword and swung it, his heart would become calm. Sword skills require a heart that is brave and has no distractions. Once you start to hesitate, the power of even the strongest sword moves will be greatly reduced. Link's eyes were focused, and he moved the blade in accordance with Faye's will. The blade is always an external object different from the body. If you want to use the Master Sword well, you must ensure communication with the sword. And this has become much easier after Faye awakened. Pa pa pa. Suddenly, the sound of clapping was heard. A voice with a somewhat feminine tone said loudly, "Not bad, not bad. What a beautiful swordsmanship." A strange voice. Link's body stopped. Although it was just a sound, his body was still sensitive and tense. Turning around, Madonna squinted and checked. "We are in the suspended royal city. Where did the stranger come from?" I saw a young man with blue-gray skin sitting on a broken statue in the shape of a god, looking at Link with a playful face. Princess Washang's eyes condensed, stood up, and the light condensed on her fingertips, and the royal sword appeared in her hand. She shouted loudly, "Stranger, who are you?" Now when he asked in wonder, "Madonna, is this one of your people?" Madonna shook her head, "No. Although I also have gray skin, it doesn't mean that people with the same skin color are the same kind of people. Are you the same kind of life as the moon?" The gray-skinned young man jumped down from the stone statue. With a somewhat malicious expression, he smiled at the Washang princess, the princess of Hyrule. "You finally don't want to be a flower pot, and you plan to use a toothpick-like sword to protect yourself?" Then he laughed again. "It seems that you are very worried about your guards." Now when he shouted, "Who are you? If you don't agree, we will beat you up." The gray-skinned young man shouted, "My name is Gerasim, a swordsman wandering in the universe." Madonna tilted her head. "What a strange name. Trash Sim? Gerasim." Gerasim roared, although there was a smirk on his face. He walked over and looked at the alert princess with a disdainful smile. Gerasim said to Link, "Young hero, well, you are a little too young. Are you really suitable to hold a sword at this age? Will it affect your development?" Faye's originally calm expression in the Master Sword turned into a gloomy face. Faye said to Link, "My Lord Link, what you see before you is a soul of magic sword." "Magic sword?" Gerasim smiled and said, "Magic sword? Faye, is that how you call me? Then what should I call you? Waste sword?" Faye regained his composure. "I know you." Madonna began to look unfriendly. "Link, don't hesitate. Kill this guy. Don't be afraid of killing the wrong person." Gerasim looked at Link. "Little boy, who gave you the right to kill? The old witch goddess Hylia behind you?" Link's eyes fixed, and he immediately raised his sword, staring at Gerasim. Gerasim smiled faintly and said, "Forget it. I won't tease you anymore. I came here mainly to recruit you on behalf of my master, the Great Ender. To let you return to the embrace of darkness." Libel's face changed drastically. "You actually came to me so soon." Gerasim continued, "Link, you are very good. You have defeated that waste named Ganon many times. Not bad. You are qualified to be a dog of my master, so that you can survive in this world where the night is about to fall and be protected by the power of Ender. You, Link, break the exorcist sword in your hand and surrender to the darkness. This is my greatest kindness." The Twilight Princess said nothing. Condensed the bow of light in her hand, and an extremely gorgeous arrow of light flew out of her hand. The violent power changed the color of the sky and the earth. Gerasim shook his body and dodged easily. Nodded. "The power of light. It's been a long time, and it's still so disgusting." Link stabbed forward alone, the blade swaying like an eagle flying into the wind. Suddenly the blade broke through the air. Gerasim spitted, "You're wasting my patience. Why don't you just be my master's slave?" The evil smile on his face became more and more creepy. Swordsmanship? I like it. I love the refreshing feeling of the light disintegrating. Jirasim was shrouded in light, black light shone through his body, and a suffocating breath escaped. The surroundings suddenly dimmed. A long sword with a hideous shape was suspended in the air, and the blade swayed. The sword was swung at Link. Clang! The swords collided. Link took a step back slightly. Jirasim laughed from the sword. With such weak power, have the heroes of this era fallen to this extent? Princess Washan frowned. This sword is a bit strange. Link ignored Jirasim's sarcasm and asked Navi calmly, is it locked? Navi shouted, locked? Link instantly had 4 clones, and the 4 master swords collided with each other. A white hot ball of light condensed. He took out his shield and used a shield to counter. Boom. The ball of light rushed into the sky like a ray of light. Outside the earth, on a broken satellite, Jirasim's real body, who was grinning and teasing Link, changed his face wildly. He saw a ball of light rushing towards him. Jirasim's expression was serious. This kid is quite capable. He can actually detect my real body. I thought he would only chase my fake clone. The ruins of the satellite in front of him were distorted by the power of the end and gathered in front of Jirasim. Jirasim snorted, but you overestimate your own abilities. At such a long distance, can you guarantee that your attack will reach here and how much energy will be left? Ridiculous. Link calmly looked at the fake clone on the earth, and Navi said on behalf of Link, you dare to provoke Link. It's your bad luck. Link's attack just now even scared himself. Jirasim was stunned. Hooray. The ruins were bombed away, and the light ball hit Jirasim's chest without any obstruction. Jirasim finally showed fear on his face, and he looked terrified. This move. Damn it. Midona looked at the disappearing false clone and smiled wickedly. Does it hurt? Idiot. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 461, Breaking Down the Defense of the Wind Beast. Midona asked, Navi, how is that arrogant guy now? Navi said, Jirasim, he was hit by Link's light assault, but he used some tricks, so he survived in the end at the cost of some injuries. Midona clicked her tongue. This guy is very strong. Link's move is very powerful. Navi shook her head, but he used it on the wrong target. Light assault is indeed very powerful, but Jirasim is essentially a sword with a very hard texture. It is at the same level as the Master Sword, so it is naturally difficult to destroy. Faye suddenly said sullenly, no, he is much harder than me. Link injected a warm power of light into the sword, communicating with Faye and expressing comfort. Princess Washan came over. Jirasim is just a sword, but it has such strange abilities. I'm afraid his master, the Ender, is even more extraordinary. Midona said, it's a pity that we lost him while tracking him, otherwise we would have killed that foul-mouthed guy here. It's all Navi's fault. How did we lose him? Navi looked wronged. How can you blame me? My locking skill can only help Link lock with one move. 2 mission certificates flew in the sky and landed on Link's chest. Not only Link's reward was flying, but also Vision. Vision waved his arm at Link and the others and said, the fighter plane has been repaired. We are here to pick you up. Hululu, a fighter plane flew into the air. It was already fully staffed, except for Banner and Tony, who stayed to continue scientific research. The rest of the people were all present. Link and the others got on the plane. The first princess skillfully arranged, when the time comes, we will attack the wind beast first. This beast controls the power of wind, so it is difficult for this fighter to approach. The first princess hesitated. Am I a little too talkative? Roger shook his arms in front of his chest and said, you continue. The first princess habitually gave orders to everyone. Not to mention, the temperament and style of the first princess made people sincerely willing to serve her. This is probably the additional effect brought by the royal bloodline. The first princess distributed action plans to everyone, based on the characteristics of the wind beast. It was well organized and everyone was quite convinced. This was the most important point. Rogers was like a soldier. After the first princess finished speaking, he shouted, yes. Everyone also agreed sparsely. The first princess had a smile on her face. Then, in the name of the goddess Hylia, save the weapon of justice used by evil. Everyone chased to the vicinity of the wind beast. The 4 beasts were all supported by a kind of stone-like metal. Plain and unpretentious, but extremely hard. Link's Master Sword was so sharp, but it could only create a few sparks on the body of the beast, but could not destroy it. This bird-shaped beast, as big as a city, circled in the sky, and the sweeping wind caused huge waves on the sea. This sea area was turned upside down by the wind beast, and it became a place that humans could not approach. It sounds like the consequences were not great. But in fact, the wind beast has blocked all ships and planes in this sea area. Not to mention the huge economic losses caused. Many satellites outside the earth in the sky, those innocent fish in the ocean, etc. All were smashed by the hurricanes fanned out by the rough wings of the wind beast, as if they were thrown into a washing machine. Vision said, this is the end of what it can reach. Link nodded and hugged Zelda's slender waist. He jumped directly from the rear door, and flapped his wings. He flipped to avoid the wind and waves of the wind beast and slowly approached. The main purpose of him and Zelda was to attract the attention of the wind beast before the final battle. Link held Zelda in one hand, and summoned the thunder bow with the other. Bright yellow lightning flashed on Zelda and Link's faces. Whoosh! He kicked with his feet, and pulled the thunder bow open. A bolt of lightning formed at Link's fingertips, and with a swish, it hit the wind beast's bird head hard. Thor cheered, well done. The power of thunder and lightning is indeed the strongest. Zappo looked at Thor with appreciation. Boy, I agree with you. Thor looked tangled. Boy. The wind beast was attacked, so it instinctively flew towards Link, and its two huge wings fanned out a strong wind. Libba touched his chin in the cabin. Only the strongest wind rider can resist this kind of strong wind. If Link resists it, he will probably be blown to another planet like a leaf. The first princess smiled and said, as for this problem, leave it to Zelda. Zelda nodded at her bracelet in Link's arms. Adjusting things. Midona nodded, threw her hands, and sprinkled a large amount of real gem ether particles into the sky. Zelda's bracelet immediately called on the unique environment formed by the surrounding ether particles. It created an illusory barrier, a dark red light shield like a helmet. Zelda smiled and said, although I don't quite understand the Earthlings' conjecture about quantum, but their technology can be combined with other things. The strong wind from the wind beast was like passing through a fishing net. It flew past, but nothing was taken away. Then Libba jumped up suddenly, and his two bird claws grabbed Zappo and Thor. Libba shouted, do you two have enough power? Thor struggled and said, put me down, I can fly. Libba smiled arrogantly, you don't fly, you just throw the hammer around. Let me show you what real flying is. Even though the wind beast's attention has been attracted by Link, the amplitude of the wings of the beast is very large, and there are still a lot of deadly turbulent airflows around. It is enough to break the arms of an eagle covered in wind and rain. Libba's eyes looked far away. He and his feathers could feel the turbulence that ordinary people could not perceive. He dodged easily and rushed to the back of the wind beast. A light red barrier instantly appeared in front of the three of them. Libba said, this is the barrier that the beast creates when it is dormant. Can you two use the power of electricity masters to pry open this barrier? Thor broke free from Libba's bird claws and shouted, for the glory of the North God. A lightning bolt like an iron tower gushed down. Thor's eyes were pure white. Zappo also swelled up towards the wind beast and gently snapped his fingers. Bear the Queen's wrath. Boom. Two huge and violent lightning struck it. Bang, the wind beast's barrier collapsed. Roger said, now, fly the plane over. Vision smiled and shouted, Mr. Jarvis, go. Welcome to vote and subscribe to support genuine works. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 462, Cut Off the Wind Disaster Ergonon. The Quinjet landed abruptly on the back of the wind beast. The cabin was shaking violently. Natasha covered her head and complained, you said you would let me drive. Why did you have to let a robot do it? As a result, Vision was enraged. Jarvis is not a robot. He is. Anyway, he is not a robot. Natasha shook her head. I refuse to apologize for such a stupid reason. Roger said in a deep voice, be careful. Prepare to fight. Twilight Princess held the bow of light, while the Invincible Princess held a sword, and the other two princesses were empty-handed. The four princesses rushed out first. With the Quinjet as the center, the black material on the ground around it bulged, forming a large number of guardians. They were densely packed like a huge ant colony, ready to kill all life forms at the same time. In an instant, a guardian noticed the presence of Zelda and others, and immediately locked onto them, and red light began to gather in the one-eyed transmitter. The bodies of the four princesses were locked by a large number of red dots. It looked quite scary. Twilight Princess pulled the bow of light and shot an arrow into the sky. Arrows of light flew up to the sky like shooting stars, and then scattered like meteor showers and fell down. Bang, bang, bang. They exploded among the group of guardians. Princess Washang raised her sword with both hands, and jumped out like dancing. Her movements were graceful, and the moves she released were as fast as lightning. Her body moved around, and the figure of Princess Washang was everywhere. A large number of Avengers were seen attacking with light beams. When they rushed to a certain range of the first generation princess and others, they exploded one after another. Princess Washang completely blocked the siege with a rapier. The first generation princess and the sky princess put their hands together, and they used the power of light and the power of stars to condense a force field. At this time, the first princess said to the cabin, "Your mission is to find the heroic weapons and the great eagle bow left here. Link can use this great eagle bow to eradicate the Calamity Ganon attached to the body of the wind beast. The physique of us Hylians is easily detected by the many guardians here, but you earthlings will not. Be careful when sneaking into the body of the beast. At the same time, believe that justice and kindness will bless you." Rogers raised his shield. Avengers, assemble. Quicksilver grabbed Rogers in one hand and Natasha in the other. They quickly took Quicksilver away, and Rogers didn't even have time to shout a slogan, and his mouth was full of wind. Scarlet Witch hugged Vision tightly. "I want to go with you. I always get carsick with my brother." Vision was full of confidence. "My body is made of vibranium. Leave it to me." Then he flew out with Scarlet Witch. Pepper raised his hands. "What about me? What about Pepper? What can I do?" The Sky Princess smiled and said, "You, Falcon and Loki will be responsible for collecting the treasures inside the beast. Whether it's weapons, arrows, or gems." Loki was happy all of a sudden. "Treasure hunting? I like it." Pepper jumped onto Loki's head and imitated the accent of a captain in a cartoon. Oh, let's go." Falcon hesitated. "Can you really hold on with only the four princesses here? What if Ganon appears?" The first generation princess said, "Thank you for your concern. Disaster Ganon will only look for Link. We actually have only one mission, to assist Link and help him gain the greatest advantage before facing Disaster Ganon one-on-one." Link landed, and suddenly, under the interference of the curse power, a large number of humanoid guardians appeared around him, holding knives and rushing towards him. Ye roared. His body quickly grew larger and swept fiercely. The humanoid guardians were swept away one after another and fell into the deep sea below. Zelda put her hands on her chest, closed her eyes, raised her chin, and began to sing in a low voice. At this time, Mipha was already sitting on the broad head of the water beast. She felt Zelda's call and then whispered to the giant under her, "Wah. Ruta, let's help the other beasts regain their freedom." "Okay. Wah." Ruta immediately raised her trunk and roared like a dragon. Oh, the water beast shot out a beam of light, passing through the clear sea surface and hitting the wind beast. Our Disaster Ganon waved his arms and was driven out of the wind beast's core by the power of the water beast. Now, the light shield set up by the Sky Princess and the first princess quickly expanded, enveloping Disaster Ganon. Disaster Ganon hit the Light Star Guardian wall hard, and the entire wind beast was shaking. The two princesses were a little reluctant. Thor saw Calamity Ganon from a distance, holding up his hammer and said, "Fight him to the death." Zabo stopped Thor and said, "You don't need us. Even in the power of thunder and lightning, Link will beat us. Let him take care of this biggest enemy. Let's go to the control center of the wind beast and help Libra gain control of the wind beast." Libra grabbed the two again and rushed to the control center of the wind beast. Link quickly broke into the light star barrier created by the princesses. Calamity Ganon stared at Link furiously. "Link, you won't give up." Midona made a face. "Lie. We are here to beat you up. Calamity Ganon's two hands condensed blue light, and he dual-wielded the Guardian Great Sword. He roared at Link. Link smiled, holding the Master Sword in one hand, and the other hand also flowed with light dust, and finally condensed into the sword of the ancient warrior in his hand. Two holy swords that seal the devil. Calamity Ganon looked at the sword of the ancient hero in amazement. This kind of power, Link said in a deep voice, the power to kill you. The sword light slashed out like the creation of the world. Calamity Ganon instantly split into two phantoms, dodged the attack, and reunited. Feeling the sacred breath in the air, Calamity Ganon became more and more fierce, waving the Guardian's Great Sword to chop. Link raised his eyebrows and fought with Calamity Ganon of the Wind. Calamity Ganon of the Wind was extremely fast, and the sharp wind blades swung by the dual-wielding Guardian weapons cut everywhere. The offensive was like a tornado. Navi watched and told Link to be careful. Facing the increasingly violent Calamity Ganon, Link responded by using static to control dynamic. After being tempered by the skeleton swordsman, his tactical thinking became more simple and unpretentious. When the wind blades came, he didn't even use his shield to counter-block. Instead, he jumped away even faster, finding an attack path from the dense wind blades and sword blades, and stabbed Disaster Ganon's vitals. Link's eyes were focused, and he saw the next floor of Disaster Ganon's madness, and immediately slashed with his sword. The power of the proof of mission penetrated into the Master Sword. Boom. The Master Sword was inserted into Disaster Ganon's waist. The sword of the ancient hero was swung, and the sword energy was agitated. Ta. Ta. Swung down, the two Guardian swords exploded into blue light. Link shouted, and the Master Sword turned white hot. Disaster Ganon was dizzy and fell to the ground. His body was cut in half by Link. Welcome to vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Thank you Lost Cube for your support of 600 starting coins. Thank you Shenjingan for your support of 100 starting coins. Thank you Long for your support of 100 reading coins. Chapter 463, Ganon's Execution, Thor's Ominous Premonition. Calamity Ganon's eyes were filled with fear. Link walked over calmly and looked down at him, his face calm and composed. But it was this expression that made Calamity Ganon shudder. Link held the Master Sword in his hand, turned the blade, and held it upside down, a clear gesture of execution. Calamity Ganon roared, "You can't kill me, Cluster." The Master Sword pierced Calamity Ganon's mouth cleanly and neatly, and Link's whole body lit up with white light, rushing towards the blade like smoke and dust raised by thousands of troops. Calamity Ganon's voice became more and more elongated and sharp. Snap. Ganon's body immediately cracked like a squeezed tomato. The cannon pollution collapsed everywhere, but in the light shield, the power of light was everywhere. The scattered cannon pollution quickly burned out and turned into a layer of floating ash. Link was seen holding the Master Sword upside down with both hands, pressing hard on a black opaque energy object. Despite Link's strong power, the cannon core disintegrated and shattered. But as long as the Wind Beast is under Ganon's control for 1 second, Link will never be able to kill him. At the Wind Beast control center, Zappo and Thor's power suddenly penetrated into it, and the console was restarted after 100 years. Libba couldn't hide his excitement, and said with a slightly trembling voice, 100 years. Libba's hand, wing, pressed on the console. With a beep, the console was activated. Libba felt the will of the Wind Beast in his heart. "You are free," Libba shouted, instilling his will to liberate the Wind Beast into it. The Wind Beast shook all over, raised its neck. Seeing a strange roar in the sky, he couldn't help coughing, and shook his head in annoyance. "You can distort the timeline. I don't care. Anyway, I've lived enough. I won't do it if I'm asked to go out of the mountain when I encounter trouble." The old Captain America irritably remembered the time when Link knocked him unconscious. Nick was in a quiet town in central New York, smiling at the blue sky, just at ease. "Some big things are happening on the earth, and these things don't need me to take care of them. It's great." Nick recalled the adventure he had experienced with Captain Marvel, and his cool face couldn't help but smile. "Where are you on the mission?" "The Earth already has its own mature siege organization. This organization is named after your fighter. Did you know?" When the Wind Beast was released, the Disaster Ganon screamed desperately. The sound waves full of mental pollution made Link's mind dazed for a short time. If it was an ordinary person, I'm afraid he would have gone crazy. The cursed core of the disaster Ganon quickly broke away from Link's master sword and flew into the sky. Midona shouted, "He's going to run. Chase him, chase him." Link quickly flapped his wings and flew over. Calamity Ganon hurriedly ordered the remaining Guardians to aim at Link together. At this time, the Avengers who were responsible for finding the lost Great Eagle Bow inside the Divine Beast had already walked out with injuries. There were many traps, dangers, and enemies inside. It took them a lot of effort to get out so quickly. The first princess shouted, "Give the Great Eagle Bow to Link." Vision hurriedly pulled the Great Eagle Bow from Quicksilver's hand and flew high into the sky. Calamity Ganon's curse core was in front, Link was in the middle, and Vision followed at the end. The three of them were at their maximum speed, so Calamity Ganon could not escape Link's pursuit, and Link could not catch up, and Vision could not give the Great Eagle Bow to Link. Pepper ran out crying with a large number of bomb arrows in his arms. "It's going to explode, it's going to explode." Twilight Princess shouted, "Throw these arrows on the Guardians' heads." Pepper flew into the air again and again, throwing down a large number of explosive arrows and a small number of lightning arrows. Then he hid in Zelda's arms. The first princess pulled up the Sky Princess and shouted, "Everyone, run." Boom boom boom. A large number of bomb arrows exploded, forming a terrible chain reaction. The back of the Wind Beast exploded into a piece, and the Guardian parts and fragments splashed everywhere, and flames rose. Pepper lay on Zelda's chest, staring at this scene in a daze. And Loki came over with a black and grey face, showing a pair of white teeth, and smiled. "Pepper, this is your credit." "My credit?" Pepper's ears stood up, and his pair of bean eyes sparkled. "That's right." The Washan Princess pulled the Dusk Princess away from the sea of fire, and the two girls laughed and coughed. The Washan Princess looked up at the sky and said, "Although the battle went smoothly, it seems that the curse core of Disaster Ganon is about to escape." At this time, I heard Libel yelling, "No, he stays." I saw an arrow rushing out with fire, and Libel turned on the extreme speed. The power of the Wind Beast gave him a body and speed as light as the wind. He immediately caught up with Vision's height, snatched the Great Eagle Bow, and shouted, "Little girl, the relay is over." Then he accelerated again, and the violent high speed blew his feathers flat, and he could only squint. But Libba was still accelerating desperately. Speed, speed, speed. Link, catch it. For us, leave that damn bastard behind. Libba threw the Great Eagle Bow violently, and Link caught it casually. He immediately bent the bow, and put an arrow on it. Calamity Ganon roared, "Don't even think about it." Because Link pulled the bow and arrow, it took some time, so he and Calamity Ganon's curse core opened up a distance again. Link stopped in the air, and had already aimed at Calamity Ganon. Let go. Arrow pierced the wind and thunder. The Calamity Ganon core was shot by Link's thunder arrow, pierced through, and flew straight into the sky. I hate. Bang. The Calamity Ganon curse core exploded. The crusade against Calamity Ganon of the Wind was successful. A large number of proofs of missions were seen dripping down from the broken curse core, like snowflakes, seeping into Link's chest. Unconsciously, Link's sacred triangle was about to be filled. The sky suddenly became clear. Thor and Zappo walked out of the bird beast's body. They saw Rogers and his friends playing with Peppa, and Peppa's cute cry reached here. Zappo smiled and said, "Boy, you did a good job." Thor raised his chin. "My name is Thor. I'm more than 1,500 years old." Zappo smiled and shook his head, "But you still have too little experience." Thor smiled confidently. "Haha, I have experienced 10 times more battles than Link." When he was about to show off his interstellar achievements to Zappo, a dark-skinned and charming woman, his heart suddenly touched the ground and contracted abnormally. He and Loki in the crowd turned their heads at the same time and looked at each other uneasily. The ominous touch in his heart seemed to foreshadow something. Father, he welcome to vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 464 Odin's soul returns to Valhalla, and Hela arrives. Link landed lightly with Libba. As the battle ended successfully, everyone was in a good mood. Libba snorted, I really don't understand. How could a guy like this beat me to death 100 years ago? Although he seemed calm on the surface, Libba was actually still brooding over the defeat 100 years ago. He was arrogant and conceited, and could not accept that he was defeated so quickly and had no effect in the entire battle. Midona smiled and said, "Yes, that's the spirit. We still have 2 beasts left. Then it's up to them to give Ganon a hard blow." At this moment, Thor suddenly roared, "Heimdall!" A strong white light with colorful colors suddenly fell from the sky and hit the back of the wind beast. Thor shouted at the crowd, "Everyone, goodbye." Something happened in Asgard. Rogers asked, "What happened?" Thor stretched out his hand to Loki. "Let's go." Loki clenched his fist. "I'm not going back. He is your father, not mine." Thor rushed forward and grabbed Loki's neck, squeezing it like a chicken. Loki gritted his teeth and glared at Thor. Thor's face also turned red. "Our father is about to die, and you are still here throwing a tantrum." Everyone was shocked. Link suddenly landed. His heart sank. Has the plot of Thor 3 begun? Hela, Natasha came between the 2 brothers, put her arm on Thor's arm, and said softly, "There is no need for you to quarrel." Loki was put down by Thor and coughed violently. Zelda came over with a sad face and said softly, "Loki, this is an opportunity. The opportunity for you and your son to reconcile. Once you miss it, it will be completely irreversible." Zelda thought of her own father, the stubborn king. She always felt sorry for not being able to reconcile with her father. Zelda listened to Link's story about how the king, who had transformed into a spirit, calmly guided Link, who had lost his memory, on the road to saving the world. The King of Hyrule described by Link was different from the rigid and stubborn father in Zelda's impression. He walked through the woods like an uncle in the countryside, and was full of tolerance for Link, who had lost his memory and was reckless, even though Link accidentally burned down his cabin. Zelda didn't want Loki to experience this kind of tragedy. Loki straightened his clothes, held his head high, and said arrogantly, "Okay. Do you think I'm afraid to see him? I'm kidding." Thor's shoulders relaxed. "Okay, let's go back." Navi suddenly said, "Take us with you." Thor hesitated for a moment, nodded, "Okay, if you want." Vishnu asked in fear, "Link, why are you so serious?" Everyone looked over and saw Link holding a shield in his left hand and a sword in his right hand, and they were all puzzled. "His father is dying. Are you going to kill him with this posture?" Thor didn't care. "It's okay. Asgardians are not afraid of weapons, let alone my father." Everyone passed through the Rainbow Bridge, traveled through time and space, and came to Asgard. The royal city of Asgard is still as magnificent as ever, and it is much more majestic than any building on Earth. Only in such a vast and magnificent land can a pure warrior like Thor be cultivated. Inside the palace, Odin was seen wearing a simple white robe, standing on a high platform with Princess Frigga. Both of them were unusually calm. Frigga smiled as she watched her 2 sons rushing over, and said to Odin, "They're back." Odin whispered, "That's great. But the Rainbow Bridge seems a little too long. I just hope I can say a few words to them." Frigga, watching his 2 sons running desperately. Odin's serious mouth had a little smile on it, but it didn't last long. His face turned pale, and his breath was annihilated. Odin died standing. Frigga pursed her lips and silently shed tears. "Father." Thor's heart shook again, and he grabbed Loki with one hand and swung his hammer with the other. But the end was still a step too late. Thor knelt dejectedly on the ground, knocking a big hole in the ground. Frigga closed her eyes. "Your father has returned to Valhalla." Thor clenched his fists, his veins exposed, and he looked at the dejected Loki beside him, panting. Thor said hatefully, "If you hadn't been making a fuss." Odin beside Frigga suddenly turned into a burst of light and disappeared. Frigga hurriedly wiped her tears and put her hands on Thor and Loki's shoulders. She tried to stay calm in her grief and explained Odin's last teachings. "Your heroic father is dead, and you don't know that you have a sister." Loki and Thor looked confused. They were still in grief over the loss of their father, and suddenly heard that they had a sister, and immediately a strange expression appeared on their bitter faces. Frigga said, "I'm afraid Asgard's greatest crisis is about to come. Your sister, Hela, the goddess of death, once helped your father conquer the territory of the 9 realms. But because of her expanding ambition, she began to backfire on Asgard, so King Odin sealed her. Now King Odin's soul has returned to Valhalla, and Hela is about to. Suddenly, a black light appeared in the royal court behind him. Thor had seen this kind of appearance mode in Ganon more than once. A strange woman with disheveled hair walked through the dark space with a cold smile on her lips. Her hair was pure black, and she was wearing a tight black dress condensed by the power of death. This color tone set off her pale skin. Thor suddenly felt his whole body tense. He has fought for more than 1,000 years, and has fought many terrible monsters. He has seen all kinds of strange monsters like octopuses, centipedes, and spiders. But the impact brought by these hideous monsters is far less than that of this enchanting woman. His sister Hela smiled and said, "My family, don't you welcome me back to Asgard?" Link felt a terrible pressure from a distance and whispered, "I'll go first." He suddenly hugged Princess Washang and quickly flapped his wings and rushed away. And Fang on his body flew out very sensibly, roared, turned into a dragon, and everyone climbed on her huge dragon claws and flew towards Asgard quickly. Natasha looked at Link strangely. This child, did he predict something in advance? Vision sniffed, "Is there Ganon in the royal city of Asgard?" Zelda said in a deep voice at Fang's other claw. "No, it's a terrible character." Hela stretched out her hands, and her hair condensed into a scorpion-like sword. "Thorn, ministers, welcome the new king of Asgard." Thor walked forward with Thor's hammer in his hand and shouted, "I'm the king of Asgard. Welcome to vote and subscribe to support genuine works." Chapter 465. Battle against Hela. Weapon Master Link. Link sped up and left a shadow in the sky. Libba was resurrected, but he left the ability to fly to Link. Now the wings are as flexible as Link's arms. He held the Master Sword in his hand and used the sword's light to break the wind. This may not make Link much faster, but it can make the Washang princess in his arms less blown by the wind. Odin's death and Hela's resurrection caught Link off guard. Not long ago, when facing the four beasts' crazy attack, Odin had turned the tide. The posture of holding Gungnir and using the world's thunder for him impressed Link. But he never thought that Odin would end his life so quickly. In the plot of Thor 3, after Odin died, Thanos suddenly took action. Link always thought that there was a connection between the two. Hela easily crushed Thor's hammer with one hand, and could easily withstand the strongest blow of the awakened Thor. Thanos, who collected all the gems, could not do it. Such a strong enemy. Link felt like he was facing a great enemy. So he brought the Washang princess with the best actual combat experience. It can be seen that he takes this battle very seriously. When he rushed to the front of the royal court, Hela had already grabbed Thor and Loki's throats with one hand each and lifted them up high. And Frigga was scolding Hela. Bang! Link stomped his feet heavily on the ground, holding swords in both hands, one in the Master Sword and the other in the Ancient Warrior Sword. His momentum was like a raging wave, and the entire royal court was instantly brightened. Princess Washang also slammed, and the light in her hands flowed, and a huge amount of light power gathered in her palms. A thin sword that looked like a glimmer on the surface of a stream appeared in Princess Washang's fingers. She held it with one hand, stopped her body, and pointed at Hela. Hela held her two struggling brothers in both hands, looking at Link and Princess Washang, who were full of fighting spirit. Perhaps because of breaking the seal, she was in a good mood and had a smile on her face. But the deadly and dangerous breath in her body, like nuclear radiation, made her smile weird and her beautiful face ghostly. Which planet are these two long-eared children from? I like this fighting spirit. No, you don't belong to any planet. You don't belong to this world. Hela narrowed her eyes and stared at Link and Washang princess like a venomous snake. I have felt something strange for a long time. There seem to be some strange guys in this universe. Are you one of them? She sneered. There is a smell of death that is stronger than mine. It's really tempting. Sooner or later I will catch him and make him my dog. Midona spread her hands, as expected of Thor and Loki's sister. You are so arrogant. You want to raise Ganon as a dog. But unfortunately, Ganon looks more like a pig. Washang princess shouted. Put down Thor and Loki. Hela's eyes turned cold. Are you ordering me? Thor forced a little sound from his throat. Link, take my mother away. He threw the Thor's hammer in his hand, swung his fingers hard, and threw it towards Link. Link caught it, and the hammer trembled slightly, as if the magic weapon was trembling. Link handed the sword of the ancient hero to the Washang princess, and he held the hammer in one hand and the sword in the other. He whispered, "Fight." Tap. He rushed out first, like a bullet. Hela smiled. "Not bad. I like you very much." Facing Hela, Link did not hold back at all, and the power of thunder penetrated into the Master Sword, piercing it like a bowstring burst. Hela felt the greatly increased power of light, pursed her lips, and threw her two brothers away. She stretched out a finger and gently flicked it on the stabbing Master Sword. The huge amount of electricity from the blade was transmitted into her body. Sparks flashed, but she was not hurt at all. Tap. The finger gently flicked the tip of the Master Sword. Link suddenly felt a huge force from the hammer hitting his wrist. Face said calmly but very quickly, "My lord Link, Hela has dispersed the light power you have infused into the Master Sword." Link's body was pulled to one side by the Master Sword, but he also followed the force and twisted his feet suddenly, his body like a wheel. The hammer hit Hela's cheek like a meteor. Hela nodded, quick reaction, but lacks polish. She thrust out swords from both arms at the same time. Ding. One sword thrust gently blocked Link's full strength hammer of Thor. The other thrust went towards Link's abdomen. Ding. Just when Link was about to be hit, the Washang princess rushed over and used her sword to block Hela's thrust. The eternal light power made the ancient hero's sword incandescent, like two fierce armies colliding with each other, competing with Hela's cold and bone-chilling death power. Princess Washang's own royal sword slashed and stabbed, like a whip. There was a bell-like sound. This was the strange sound made by the sword of Princess Washang's sword breaking through the air. Princess Washang stabbed Hela's heart fiercely. Hela was surprised and said, "This is the feeling of being injured. It's so good." She raised her hand and stabbed horizontally with a sword, shaking off the sword of the ancient hero in Princess Washang's hand, and then quickly slashed towards Princess Washang's cheek. So fast. Princess Washang leaned back in a hurry, but her cheek was still scratched with a spider web-like blood mark. Link gritted his teeth and threw Thor's hammer away, pulled his hand back, and caught the sword of the ancient hero. He slashed Hela's chest with a fierce sword. Another sword stabbed quickly, and Hela was stabbed in the abdomen. But Link knew that he had not hurt Hela's essence. Hela spread her hands, and a large number of sword stabs shot out from her body and rushed towards Link. The sword of the ancient hero in Link's left hand disappeared, and the crystal Hylia shield ding dong blocked the sword stab. Hela retreated and expanded the space, but Link quickly replaced the Master Sword in his other hand with Mistatin. Mistatin is mistletoe, which has the ability to repair itself. Under Link's care, it is already intact. The whip grabbed Hela's neck and pulled her over. The Hylia shield disappeared in his hand and transformed into Mytha's light scale spear. Cluster, the spearhead stabbed into Hela's neck. Hela's eyes became more excited. She had been sealed for too long, and her desire for war was too strong. Even the pain made her feel comfortable. And just after she came out of the seal, she met such a tenacious and brave opponent like Link, which really made her excited. Link stopped when he saw the good, and quickly evacuated with a backflip. And Hela's injuries were almost instantly healed. Hela smiled and said, "Boy, you have so many surprises." Link let out a long breath. Just now, the smooth switching of multiple weapons caught Hela off guard. As Link's weapons increased, his kaleidoscope-like switching of weapons became more and more effective. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support the original work. Chapter 466 Real Estate Tycoon Zelda. Midona patted Link on the head. "Well done." The fierce battle just now lasted less than 10 seconds. It seemed that Link's side had the upper hand, repeatedly injuring Hela. But Link knew it very well. Since Hela was freed from the seal, she has been very happy and did not fight him seriously. She even had a mentality of playing with Link. In the plot of Thor 3, Hela was sloppy throughout the plot, and finally Thor took the opportunity to cause Ragnarok to destroy Asgard, and Hela's life and death were unknown. Link was different. He directly fought with his strongest state and the attitude of fighting with Ganon. He was full of fighting spirit and did not dare to relax at all. What's more, Link's output in the battle just now was not enough, while Hela was not injured at all. On the contrary, because of the longer time, the connection with Asgard became closer, and the power became more deadly. Thor stood up with his throat covered and coughed. Thor came to Link and said, "I will fight with you." Loki also covered his throat and came to Frigga with a painful look on his face, saying, "Let's run away. We can't beat Hela." Then Loki looked at Hela sincerely. "Sister, now you are the new king of Asgard. We have no objection. Please let us go." Frigga shook her head, her face full of disappointment. "No, your father definitely doesn't want to see this scene." Thor took the Thor's hammer from Link and said in a hoarse voice, "I'm Thor, the god of thunder, the king of Asgard. I will not abandon my kingdom and my people and leave." Hela laughed and said, "What god are you? I didn't hear you clearly." Thor said, "I'm the god of thunder." The sword pierced into Thor's abdomen like a ghost. Thor collapsed. Link was also shocked. Hela's speed just now was too fast, and even he didn't react. Frigga hurriedly broke free from Loki's hand and helped Thor up. Thor forced a smile and said, "I'm fine, just a minor injury." Link stood in front of Thor and Frigga, but he also knew that Hela had no intention of killing Thor. Although Thor suffered a lot due to her violent character and even lost an eye, Link whispered, "Your opponent is me." Hela smiled and said, "What's your name?" "Link." Hela looked very appreciative. "I like you very much. My weak father probably didn't go to expand the territory during the time he imprisoned me. I'm afraid that the people in the universe have forgotten the former glory of Asgard. I want to create an era of blood and fire again. I appreciate you. You come to my general. I will treat you like my own son." Link's brave temperament and fighting spirit were very much loved by Hela, and Hela wanted to recruit him. But these words really made people feel a little cold. Link's eyebrows jumped in anger. "What's wrong? I'm just young, but I'm also 100 years old. Why does everyone want to acknowledge me as their son? You think I have a good temper based on my face, right? Have you forgotten what the people of Hyrule called me?" Exclamation mark. Thor covered his abdomen and panted, "Treat your own son." Link, Hela wants to kill you. After all, she is so cruel to her own brother. Hela sneered, "Do you think too highly of yourself? If I wanted to kill you, you would have been dead long ago." "Link, come here and accept my orders." Princess Washan raised her sword and said coldly, "Link will not be loyal to you. He is my knight." Hela snorted, "You, little girl." She looked at Link, "Accept my offer, and I will give this little girl to you as a slave." Midona blushed and grabbed Link's ear. "Are you moved?" "Ah. You are really moved. Men. You are the synonym of falsehood." Link smiled bitterly and shook his head to avoid Midona's little hand. "Don't make a fuss." Princess Washan's cheeks were slightly red. Link asked Navi to say to Thor, "You guys go. Escape from here." Thor shook his head. "No, I will never abandon my kingdom even if I die." Navi continued, "Don't just run away with your family. Take all the Asgardians with you and flee." Hela's face changed. Thor and Frigga were stunned, but Loki's face was gloomy. Navi continued, "Your kingdom is the people here, not the palace here, understand?" Princess Washan whispered, "My land is still there, but my people are gone. Such a country is useless." Link said, "I will hold Hela. You guys take this time to escape." Frigga said worriedly, "But we have no other planets." Thor and Navi said at the same time, "Earth." Princess Washang smiled and said, "Maybe the people on Earth will be dissatisfied, but they can't control my Sky King city." Thor thought in his mind, "If my people move to your Zelda's land, then does my status as the king of Asgard still count?" But he also knew Princess Washang's good intentions. He nodded immediately. He said, "We." Hela was finally angry. "Don't talk to yourself." A row of swords stabbed quickly, faster than before. Bullet time. Link would not let Hela succeed. Hela easily stabbed Thor last time, and Link would not let Hela succeed a second time. Shield counter. He waved his hand and the sword stab was hit by an inexplicable force, turned 180 degrees, and stabbed back at Hela. Hela looked at Link coldly, "If you don't want to be my subject, then be the corpse under my feet." The unparalleled princess shook the sword body and swung a large piece of sword light. She has superb group combat skills and a large attack area. At once, the overwhelming sword light stabbed at Hela. Hela's vision was blocked. She stomped her feet, and the large amount of sword light covering the surroundings was shattered and turned into the most basic light particles and scattered. Cluster. But just after the sword light, an arrow flashing with lightning stabbed. Link held the thunder bow in the back and maintained the posture of shooting an arrow. The lightning hit hella hard, and hella flew backwards. But Link clearly sensed that a large amount of negative energy began to gather. This was Hella's attitude, to start a larger scale battle. Loki and Frigga were supported by Thor, who hurriedly stopped him, and turned to throw Thor's hammer at Link. Thor reluctantly shouted, "Mjolnir, help Link on my behalf." But the result was unexpected. Bang! Link was about to launch a further attack, but he didn't expect Thor to throw the hammer back to him. With his attention highly focused, he didn't react, and the force of Thor's hammer was not small. It hit the back of Link's head. Link staggered and turned back to glare at Thor. Midona also shouted angrily, "Thor, you are going to bully my Link as a family, right?" Thor's face was embarrassed, and he said to Frigga and Loki with a dry laugh, "Let's go." Slip away. Hela took this opportunity to quickly approach Link. This time she was angry, and the power of death escaped from her body. She stabbed Link's head with her sword. Link waved his Hylia shield to block, and grabbed Hela's arm. Then he lowered his head suddenly. A ray of light flew from the back of Link's head and hit Hela's head. Twilight Princess breathed a sigh of relief, and cheered herself up. Yeah. Success. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 467. Messy feelings and messy attacks. The power of the arrow of light was so extraordinary that even Link didn't dare to take it head on. It hit Hela's face directly. Hela was the goddess of death, and her compatibility with the power of light was completely incompatible, and it was the pure power of light of the Washang princess. This strong and disgusting power rushed directly to Hela's face, making her head and face all over. What kind of feeling was this? Under such a strong attack, Hela's body flew backwards and hit the throne of the royal court. Crack. The throne collapsed. Fangs flew over, and the four princesses landed gracefully. Link raised his thumb to the Twilight Princess. He taught the Twilight Princess archery himself, and her accuracy and speed could rank among the top 3 in the world. The first 2 were Link and Hawkeye. Seeing his apprentice become a master, Link was quite satisfied. "You, cough." Hela roared, and stretched out the sword from her wrists, and immediately tore the rich power of light on her chest into pieces. Her scorpion-like hair was also hit by the arrow of light, and became a little limp. Well, this really angered Hela. Link thought to himself. But there was no way to make enemies with Hela. Vision, Scarlet Witch and others arrived and landed beside Link. The 2 girls looked at Hela sternly. Both Vision and Scarlet Witch were very perceptive. Although Hela looked normal and didn't have 3 heads and 6 arms, the terrifying aura of death she conveyed still made Vision and the others wary. Vision asked, "Link, is this also Ganon's accomplice?" "They feel the same." Navi said, "No, this is Thor's sister." Vision said subconsciously with a silly face, "Ah, hello, sister." Navi continued, "But she just hurt Thor. She is our enemy." Vision said oh, and said to Hela seriously, "Then sister, we are going to attack you." Hela said angrily, "I don't have any brothers. You will all die here. Don't try to get close to me." Seeing Hela so fierce, Vision felt a little wronged, and tears flashed in her 2 lovely pale gold eyes. Seeing this, Midona shouted at Hela, "Why are you so fierce? This is just a child less than 2 years old." Fang landed behind Link. Rogers and Natasha jumped down from the dragon's claws and hurried to Thor's side. The 4 Zeldas also came to Link's side. Princess Sky asked curiously, "Link, why did you only bring her, Princess Washang?" Princess Washang said, "I have the most practical experience and can help Link." She felt sweet in her heart that Link took her first when something happened, and looked at Link tenderly. Although the 5 Zeldas are the same soul, they have different wills. So they all have different opinions about Link. After all, they are 4 different hearts, and the princesses all want to know who is the more important one in Link's heart. Although the 5 princesses did not quarrel and calculate like in romance dramas, they still secretly fought for Link's love. And just now, Princess Washang won a small victory. This elegant battlefield princess was filled with a little joy in her heart, making her face smile, and even the sword scar on her cheek became bright. As for the other 4 princesses, they all felt a little jealous. I have to say that this fight is very strange. Who else in the world has seen such a scene? Fighting for favor with oneself? Princess Sky took Link's hand and said seriously, "Link, let's fight together." Princess Washang said calmly, you assist with long range output, and I will fight Link at close range. Princess Sky said anxiously, I can also fight at close range. Princess Twilight hesitated and said, I. Princess One smiled generously. She was the most confident Zelda and the princess with the most royal temperament. She would not participate in such a macro battle. She wanted to win by the kingly way. Mipha hurriedly walked over. Although this was a fight between 5 princesses, she couldn't just stand by and watch. So she said, I will heal your wounds. Link was not a fool. He saw the princesses fighting and comparing more and more frequently, but he could only play dumb. After all, his relationship with Zelda was very special. Say lovers? But they were closer than lovers. Say family? But they respected each other. Say friends? Have you ever seen friends so ambiguous? Say comrades? This is even more outrageous and purely added. You have to compare. Link felt that the relationship between them was more like the two Pokémon in Pokémon, Slowpoke and Shellder. Now that the enemy was at hand, he had no energy to care about the girls' fight, and said to the first princess, help the people of Asgard go to Earth. The first princess nodded, leave it to me. Her character of liking to command people was revealed again. The first princess said, Zelda and I from the wilderness world, as well as Natasha, Rogers, and Urzapo. A group of Thors will help the Asgardians evacuate. The rest of the people will fight Hela with Link. There were not many Asgardians, but Thor's family could not evacuate them. When Link asked the first princess to evacuate the people, the first princess had already understood what Link meant. Hela could not be defeated, and the battle was to delay time, so she took the people to evacuate. Although the first princess was surprised at Link's lack of confidence, she didn't know that Hela could not be killed. She still listened to Link. She chose to let the heroes and superheroes with the best leadership ability evacuate the crowd. Hela grinned and said, you yellow-haired girl, aren't you a little self-righteous? Quicksilver snorted, there are so many of us, but we can't beat an old woman like you. Why evacuate people? Just capture her. Natasha shouted coldly, Link's judgment is not wrong. Go to Heimdall quickly, and send you back to Earth to find Strange. Otherwise, you can't lead so many people away. Hela's face was cold, and a row of sword blades emerged from the ground, like shark fins floating on the sea, stabbing over. Ha. Darkle slammed the ground with both fists, and 2 strong forces hit the sword blades along the surface. Darkle rumbled and shouted, although I don't like so many people beating a woman, I know you are very strong. Darkle's fist force collided with the sword blade. Link instantly stepped on Darkle's shoulder and reached out with a sword. Libba flew high into the sky, holding a bow with 2 eagle claws, and shooting an arrow at Hela. The Twilight Princess drew the bow again, and the light gradually rose. Vision fired a laser, followed by a strong scarlet force. The Sky Princess gathered the power of stars in both hands, and the gamma ray named after Zelda burst out. The Washang Princess drew a large sword with one hand. Such a luxurious attack, completely tilted towards Hela. And Hela's face once again showed a smile. There are many excellent warriors in the new era, which really opened my eyes. But you are still far behind. Welcome to vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 468 Hela. What a disgusting feeling. Although the 3 main forces of the Avengers, Thor, was injured, and Tony and Banner did not arrive in time due to a sudden accident. But under such a wave of attacks, it can basically be said that they are killing gods. The interior of the Asgard Royal Court is magnificent and spacious, enough for 2 football teams to play games inside. But even so, under the long-range attacks of the Masters of Link's camp, it was immediately covered by various colors of light clothes. Dark red, gold, blue and white, and the most dazzling white light filled the royal court, and elements of various attributes were also crazy and violent, and the entire space was quite shaken. This violent attack, like the raging waves of the sea, tilted towards Hela. The Sky Princess herself was frightened by the sudden and terrifying attack of her own side. Her sapphire-like eyes flickered, and she whispered, isn't it a bit too much of a fuss? The Dusk Princess was next to the Sky Princess, with a far-sighted look. Her eyesight was very strong, and she saw Hela's indifferent smile through the colorful group attack beams. Biting her lip, she said in a low voice, no. This Hela is definitely not as simple as the left and right. Midona covered her eyes, and lethal beams and arrows shot out from her side. She asked hurriedly, Link, we rushed too far forward, and it is easy for our teammates to accidentally hurt us. Nori shook her head, and the light on her small body was warm. No. Link has the god's perspective, but he has eyes on his back. At this moment, Link's eyes were already golden, and his pupils were filled with indifference, because they had lost their focus. Although he was in the front, and in a very dangerous situation, he dodged left and right, leading the attacks of the Avengers, to rush towards Hela like surfing. The god's perspective took in the surroundings in the front, and back into his mind. There was a powerful collective attack beside and behind him, and there was a strong force of death in front of him. Link was in the extremely dangerous power of the two. The element of the surrounding world that he used as a scout to capture information were very unstable, causing a stinging feeling in his eyes, and blood flowed from his eyes. This scared Nori and Midona. Even the tooth that was wrapped around his neck again quickly stretched out its tongue like a fang, licking the blood and tears that Link shed. Link whispered, I'm fine. The bleeding eyes were caused by the impact of the extremely chaotic element nearby, and the pollution and invasion of the spirit. But Link's own powerful healing power was also quickly triggered, and the light blue kneading power covered the inside of his eyes. Under the ethereal golden light, Link's eyes showed a light blue healing power with a strong breath of life. He jumped up and stepped lightly on the arrow shot by Libel and rushed towards Hela like the wind. Link summoned the Dragon Soul Great Sword, and the ancient dragon breath was cast out. Yer also understood it at the first time, transformed into a Dragon Soul, and drilled into the Dragon Soul Great Sword. The Great Sword was activated immediately. The terrible high temperature rang out, and bursts of strong dragon roars came from inside. Link's heart was empty, and he adjusted his mental state to the best. The golden color in front of his eyes was instantly shattered, revealing a sharp expression. The body was as tight as a bowstring, and the power of light madly poured into the Dragon Soul Sword. Boom. A sword chopped down. Hela smiled grimly and nodded. This move is quite interesting. The black breath, like a ghost, rushed to Hela's hands, and her arms and palms were immediately covered with a layer of armor like crocodile skin. Ferocious spikes emerged from her 10 fingers, just enough to hold a person's head. Bang! The extremely hot power of the Dragon Soul collided with the dead power of Hela. The power of the Dragon Soul was extremely concentrated, and the proof of order guided the use of every bit of light power in Link's body, with very little waste. So that even less than 1 centimeter away from the blazing Dragon Soul Sword, it was difficult to feel the terrifying high temperature carried by it. But Hela was different. Her death power seemed to be free of charge and fiercely attacked the Dragon Soul Sword. The surrounding light particles were annihilated under the interference of the death power, so that except for Link's incandescent Dragon Soul Sword, the rest was dim, and Link became the only light. Ugh. Link's face turned pale, and he almost vomited blood, but he managed to swallow it. This was the first time he had a head-on confrontation with Hela, and felt the direct impact from one of Marvel's strongest. His wrists and arms were infected by the power of death, dyed pure black, and even his body was hit by a lot of the power of death. The two of them were deadlocked. Hela saw Link's expression and said coldly, "You overestimate your own abilities." Then Taste My Midona made a sound of puffing, and immediately mobilized the reality gem. A mysterious breath emerged, and other particles emerged from Midona's hair, turning into a stab at Hela's eyes. Hela snorted coldly, raised her chin and blew gently. The other particles suddenly exploded. Midona shouted, "Oh, it's out of control." Before Hela could taunt, her face changed. The surrounding space had been disturbed by Midona, and the death elemental power that was dissipated outside her body was isolated from her body. Link pulled out a hand, and Thor's hammer appeared on his white palm. But he did not choose to attack Hela, but with a handful of lightning, he smashed towards the Dragon Soul Great Sword. Bang! The power of the Dragon Soul and the power of thunder collided with each other, and a violent shock came, and Link's knuckles broke. Hela was not feeling well either, and the two fierce attribute powers directly blew her arms temporarily stiff. At the place where the sword and the hammer collided, a red and burning lightning burst out from the Dragon Soul Great Sword, and its shape was just like a fierce flying dragon. "You kid." Hela's face was angry, but before she finished speaking, her face was hit hard by the explosive attack of thunder and fire. Nori shouted, "Yeah." Link was also in a good mood. The Twilight Princess gave him inspiration. Sure enough, hitting the face was still effective. After a sizzling lightning flashed on his body, Link's stiff body was activated again. A set of attacks is not over yet. He wants to hit Hela with the power of thunder. Otherwise, when Hela fights back, Link will have no chance of winning. Time stop. Hela's body was immediately bound by several pale golden chains. Link used the time stop skill to freeze her. Then with a hammer, Hela was whipped into the sky. Bang! The Twilight Princess's arrow of light bombarded Hela. Link rushed to shield counter, and the attacks of Vision and Scarlet Witch were also deflected by his shield counter and hit Hela. Missed it and pulled out. Then pulled the immobilized Hela down, and caught the gamma ray burst of the Sky Princess. The Washang Princess shouted softly, and the sword in her hand deformed like molten iron, forming a winged arrow of light with a whistling sound of the wind, which also bombarded Hela. Boom boom boom. Everyone's full strength attack was guided by Link to hit Hela. Under the time stop skill, the damage superimposed on Hela's body was already very terrible. If no one sorted out the group attack of the Avengers, it would cause a great waste, but would give Hela an opportunity. So Link must rush to the front and control, and gather everyone's strength together, and only he can do it. AHH. Link shouted and spun. The Dragon Soul Great Sword held on for the last bit of time, and the sword fell off and chopped Hela. The time stop skill was lifted. Bang! Hela turned into a meteor, and flew into the air and disappeared. Link fell to the ground, and Navi was about to pull Midona to cheer. The sudden change happened again. Link's eyes flashed with colorful light, and fell into darkness in an instant. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 469 New Skill, Blinding Strike. Vision and Scarlet Witch clapped their hands together. Yeah. Sky Princess looked up at Hela, who had turned into a star, shook her head, and said a little silly, I think she must be very angry. After all, being beaten up. Dark laughed and said, it's so comfortable to fight with Brother Link. He is so good at fighting. Libba landed and nodded in agreement. Libba was the proudest person in Hyrule, but he also believed in Link. There was really not much that could be done in that moment. He didn't know how Link calculated and used time in the short and urgent moment to integrate everyone's attacks and effectively hit Hela. Princess Washang exclaimed, Link, what's wrong with you? Everyone immediately saw Link kneeling on one knee, covering his eyes, with a look of shock on his face. Ye looked at Link in panic, and saw that Link's expression was very solemn and even a little frightened. Link, he can't see. Mipha hurried over, and placed her two cold little hands on Link's shoulders, sending waves of gentle protective power into Link's body. The wound on Link's palm healed at a speed visible to the naked eye, and the wounds in Link's body healed in almost a second. But Link still couldn't see. Princess Washang bent down, stroked Link's cheek with one hand, and slowly asked Link to raise his head. Then she took a breath of cold air. Link's face, which was flushed because of the battle, was still 30% cute and handsome. This face always made Princess Washang fascinated. But the problem was, Link's eyes changed color. His eyes, which were originally like sapphires, now turned into a turbid black, just like polluted heavy industrial water. Twilight Princess said sternly, come, Link. Let me check your eyes. Link obediently opened his eyes wide, and Twilight Princess's white and tender fingers gently touched these sapphire-like eyes. Link tried his best to resist the feeling of a foreign body in his eyes, but he was worrying too much. Because when the Twilight Princess touched his eyeballs, he felt nothing, as if his eyeballs no longer belonged to him. The Twilight Princess looked more and more melancholy. Link, your eyes were probably affected by the violent death force element mixed around you, and the elemental attributes of our attacks. When you opened the god's perspective, your pupils were polluted, which led to blindness. I just don't know if it's permanent. The Sky Princess said in panic. Will Link be blind in the future? Link smiled a little, reached out to the source of the sound, and touched the Sky Princess's arm. Navi helped Link and said, Link said he's fine, don't worry about him. Blindness? This is not the first time Link has encountered this problem. In the previous battle with Ganon, his eyes were damaged. Before that, in the Dark Elf plot, he and Tony were stranded in the dark space, and Link also experienced a pure black battle. Dealing with the problem of inability to see, Link is quite skilled. Midona forced a smile and said, "Have you forgotten? Link has a god's perspective. He can see things without eyes." That's right. God's perspective. Link adjusted his eyes to the god's perspective state. He immediately saw the worried eyes of everyone looking at him. Everyone was concerned about him. Quicksilver shouted, "Ugh, your eyes are bleeding black blood," only to see dirty black blood seeping out of Link's two eye sockets. Mipha hurriedly took out her handkerchief to help Link wipe it, but the black blood absorbed on the handkerchief was rapidly dissipating at a speed visible to the naked eye. Link's eyes felt pain and he hurriedly closed his eyes. Quicksilver mouthed to everyone, "It's over." Midona glared at Quicksilver, but Link was a little puzzled. His body was already very strong, reaching the limit of Hylian's. He shouldn't be so fragile that his eyes would go blind due to a little pollution. Link is not a weak and sickly person. He has never caught a cold since he was a child. Since the eyes are polluted, perhaps the power of light can be used to expel it. So he used the power of light to flow into his eyes. If others knew he was doing this, they would probably scream out in fear. No matter how gentle the power of light is, it is also a force used for combat and attack. He was so bold to use the power of light to interfere with the eyes. When the power of light rushed into the eyeball, he did not feel any resistance. It was as if the pollution in the eyes did not exist. This is very strange. What about the pollution? Link was puzzled, but he still had a lot of things to do, so he could only withdraw the power of light from his eyeball. But at this moment, a white light suddenly appeared in his eyes. A shattering sound came from his eyes. This made Link a little scared. What happened? Exclamation mark. The power of light quickly noticed the problem. Link's blindness was not caused by the pollution of his eyes, but when he used the god's perspective to extract the surrounding information, he included too many elements of Hela, Scarlet Witch, Vision and others. As a result, the excessive information interfered with his vision. He blinked hurriedly. The light power in his body flowed rapidly, and his body glowed faintly. Everyone saw that Link suddenly lit up like a light bulb. No one knew what he was going to do. While his body was running at high speed, Link once again opened the god's perspective to flush out the remaining element. Then everyone was surprised to find that Link's eyes began to fade from black, revealing his original blue eyes. The Sky Princess patted her chest, her shoulders relaxed, and she complained in a low voice, "You make the problem so serious. Are you scaring me?" Link's vision also returned to normal, and he felt relieved. "I can see things again." At this time, the puzzled voice of the goddess Hylia came into his mind. "Huh? Your god's perspective has evolved and evolved other skills." Link was stunned. How could it be purified? I didn't feel anything at all. Suddenly his eyes hurt again, and blood and tears flowed from his eyes. He still felt confused, but this time was different from before. Although his eyes hurt, he could still see things clearly. As a result, he saw everyone in a panic and shouted hurriedly, "I can't see. What's wrong? My eyes. What happened? My eyes are fine, but you are blind. My new skill is damage transfer. This skill is not in line with the style of a hero, right?" Exclamation mark. Link. Due to the fear of blindness, the surrounding Zelda Mipha approached in panic and pulled Link's arm charmingly. Link was like a dog entangled by 4 clinging dogs. Goddess Hylia said in Link's ear, "Because your god's perspective has broken through, your eyes have been given new skills by new energy. That is, what you see now. Blinding strikes, and the failure depends on the opponent's ability. It is very suitable for surprise in battle." Link opened his mouth slightly and was shocked. The short time he had just fought with Hela was enough to explain everything. Every second on the battlefield is a variable, and a moment of hesitation means that the danger has increased 100-fold. Link naturally knows what this new skill means. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 470. What a big ball. Everyone's vision soon recovered. Sky Princess rubbed her eyes and asked Link in confusion, "Your disease is also contagious?" Link asked Navi to help him explain to everyone. Vision looked strange. "Link, you have awakened a new skill? Can it make other people's eyes temporarily blind? She hid behind Scarlet Witch timidly and moved her lips carefully. Don't use this trick on me. Scarlet Witch listened and looked at Link seriously. If you dare to bite her secretly when Vision can't see, I won't let you go. Of course, her tone was a little weak. Link's face immediately sank, his figure lowered, and the light on his body flowed, transforming into Shadow Wolf mode. He roared in a low voice and bared his white wolf fangs at Vision and Scarlet Witch. The two innocent girls were so scared that they screamed and hugged each other in fear, as pitiful as they could be. Loki came over and smiled. Why did you bother, Link? Falcon nodded. That's right, Loki. Why are you here? Where's your brother? It turned out that Loki came over calmly with his arms behind his back at some point. He smiled slightly. Thor was trying to evacuate the crowd with others. I thought it was meaningless, so I ran back to help you. When Link heard this, he used all his limbs and ran to the front of the stage like a shadow. The Asgardians were seen boarding warships in an orderly manner, using Stranger's spark ring to fly to the Earth. It was just like the daily traffic at the dock, and it was impossible to tell that they were fleeing. Loki smiled and said, the fifth Zelda who appeared was really extraordinary. She quickly helped my mother stabilize the situation, and her words were more effective than Thor's. I think Thor looks awkward. He suppressed his smile. Everyone was sweating. The first generation princess's leadership style is too strong. As the first princess skillfully directed everyone to evacuate, she immediately felt an overwhelming black aura coming, a breath she had only seen on Ganon before. She turned around quickly and raised her jade-like cheek. She saw an astonishing scene. The heads of the evacuated Asgardians were covered by shadows. They looked up and screamed, causing the stable order maintained by the first princess to fluctuate instantly. Because in the air, a giant sword formed by black crystals was formed, like a Huashan mountain floating in the air. The first princess's face was horrified, but she quickly calmed down. Like dancing, she quickly but calmly walked through the crowd, commanding everyone loudly. Her voice, which was not loud, but had a strong penetrating power, was transmitted to the ears of every Asgardian under the amplitude of its pure light power. Soon, the evacuated Asgardians regained their composure with the efforts of the first princess. Captain America, Natasha and others who assisted the first generation princess in evacuating were all surprised. You know, in such a crisis, it is extremely difficult to stop the chaos. Without extraordinary leadership, the people of Asgard will definitely be in a state of uncontrolled chaos. Scarlet Witch was in a state of dismay. She had a strong sense of perception, so she was the one who could best feel the energy gathered by Hela in the sky. She almost wailed and said, how is it possible? We had such strong power together. The attack they had just launched together was very smooth. With Link's rapid guidance in a short period of time, everyone's full strength attacks hit Hela one after another. But the smoother and more full strength attacks did not cause any damage to Hela. It was even more frustrating. The Huashan princess shouted, what are you afraid of? Just get ready for battle. She stood with her sword in hand, and her slender figure condensed a strong character that was completely different from her soft appearance. She turned her head to look at the Twilight Princess. The two people with the same soul understood each other's will in an instant. Use that trick. Hela, standing on the black crystal sword, had an especially gloomy aura. She licked the last trace of blood from the corner of her mouth, her face full of fury. In the lightning-fast battle just now, she was at a disadvantage. She was beaten by Link without any chance to fight back. Although she was not injured, she felt that her self-esteem was hurt. Want to take my subjects away? I will crush you all under my feet. The black crystal sword shot down fiercely. Link gritted his teeth, and Nori hurriedly conveyed Link's order. Libel, you pull Darkle up into the sky. Soar. With a flap of wings behind him, Link quickly shot into the sky. The people around him were swaying and almost blown down by the wind as Link's wings flapped rapidly. Libba shouted, grabbed Thor's shoulders and flew up. You have to know that as a chubby hero of the Gideon tribe, Darkle's weight is heavier than a stone of the same volume, but Libba still lifted it easily. The black crystal sword fell like a meteorite. This large-scale scene doubled the pressure on Libba. This was also the first official manifestation of Hela's strength. Darkle saw Link's lips move slightly and immediately understood what Link wanted to do. He suddenly rolled his body into a ball. The gibbon tribe can shrink their bodies into a ball like a pangolin. After shrinking into a ball, the defense power increased dramatically, and it can even be used as a cannonball. Seeing Hela's attack like the collapse of the sky, Libba suddenly loosened his two eagle claws and threw Darkle, who had rolled into a ball, in front of Link. Hela looked at Link, who was still trying to resist, and grinned. "You can't do anything. I want to destroy Asgard and rebuild it. This kingdom has lost the bloody smell of glory. I need to restore the glory of the royal city to its former glory." Natasha looked at Rogers blankly. "We are afraid Strange and Wang, who were accepting the Asgardians in the huge spark circle, also had a look of horror on their faces. Especially when looking at Link, who was desperately flying up to the sky and trying to resist the giant black crystal sword. There was an atmosphere of tragedy. Wan King couldn't help but whispered, "Although we have picked up some people, it's still too late. This kind of super large scale attack, Link can't resist it at all." Strange was sweating. He tried his best to stabilize the teleportation spark circle. The Earth and Asgard are so far away, and the number of people transported is so huge. He really has no spare energy to help Link. Just when everyone stopped breathing nervously, Link's figure was torn apart and turned into 3 clones. Time stop skill. Darkle was locked just above Link's head. Forcibly using the second time stop skill in a short period of time put a great load on Link's body. I saw that the 4 Links all changed to the Dragon Soul Great Sword, and they shouted and swung the great swords to smash the locked Darkle. Welcome to vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Kidian is checking itself, and the comments in this chapter will be affected. Don't panic. Chapter 471 My Stupid Sister. Hela was slightly surprised when she saw Link's 3 clones. Does this kid have another trick? Then she sneered. No matter how hard you struggle, you will die under the absolute power. I want to see how you can jump around. Bang, 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 bang. The 4 Links bombarded Darkle with their weapons. Although it looked like a sneak attack on a friendly army, it actually did not cause much damage to Darkle. At most, he would just feel dizzy. How terrible was the power that the 4 Links burst out. The light golden chains on Darkle's body shattered instantly. His body shot towards the black crystal sword like a cannonball. Bang. Something that Hela could not imagine happened. The black crystal sword quickly shattered as soon as it touched Darkle, and then quickly spread to the entire body. Hela exclaimed, "No. Impossible. Kala." The black sword shattered instantly. All disappeared in an instant. The scene was magnificent, as if it could only be seen in myths. After all, Hela is supposed to be a character in mythology. Vision saw it clearly. His face was filled with horror. Oh my god. Everyone was so shocked that they were speechless. They all hoped that Link could block the black crystal sword, but they didn't expect Link to actually block it. Midona shook Link's head in fear. "You succeeded. You succeeded." But Nori saw that Link's face became more and more weird, and he vomited the last mouthful of blood and fell down dejectedly. After all, this was Hela's full strength attack, and it was already very difficult for Link to withstand it. The load caused by the full force of the 3 clones made Link faint all of a sudden. Midona gritted her teeth and turned into an adult form and hurriedly hugged him. Yair's body quickly grew larger and carried the 2 people who fell. "Link!" Hela roared and slapped Darkle away with a slap. 2 sharp black crystals containing terrible power appeared from her shoulders and suddenly stabbed at the falling Link. She awakened to eliminate Link's life. Vision and Scarlet Witch rushed to stop them, but Hela knocked them away. The Princess of the Sky used all her strength, and a star curtain spread out, which was also shattered by Hela's sword. Hela landed. The Asgardians around were extremely panicked and retreated. Hela roared, "I'm your new king. Kneel down." Everyone knelt down, and Roger stood with a shield in his hand, ready to fight to the death. Natasha also shuttled through the kneeling crowd, ready to wait for an opportunity to attack. Thor broke free from his mother's support and walked over with his teeth gritted despite his injuries. Since Thor's hammer was given to Link, Thor could only cover his abdomen with one hand and clench his other hand into a fist. "Your opponent is me." Hela laughed. "My stupid brother. You are so embarrassed. It reminds me of our father." She waved her hand, and the power of death was released. Thor's body suddenly sank, as if he was under a heavy burden. Thor spit out a mouthful of blood and stared at Hela. Hela said with a smile, "Kneel down." Thor held his knees tightly. Don't think about it. Hela narrowed her eyes. Then, wait. At this time, Link came over breathlessly with a fake smile on his face. Haha, why are you all angry? He is your brother after all. Stab. Link's shoulder was pierced immediately, and the black crystal opened the wound on his shoulder. Hela said ferociously, what about you? You dare to come in front of us? I will kill you now. Zelda and the first generation princess looked at each other. Their expressions were very strange. Link smiled reluctantly. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. I'm willing to be your general. You are so powerful. The black crystal carried Link to Hela. Link's face was twitching with pain, but he still smiled reluctantly. How is it? I just showed my powerful strength. What do you think? Hela smiled and said, you finally gave in. Stab. Link's face turned sideways, and his other shoulder was also pierced by the black crystal that suddenly appeared. Link's face was pale. He reluctantly said, how about I be your subordinate and let them go? Hela said, they are all subjects of Asgard. No one is allowed to leave. Link hurriedly said, you are totally wrong. These people should leave, otherwise they will be harmful to you. You want to dominate the universe. These Asgardians will become a burden to you. Hela's face showed confusion. What do you mean? Link smiled and gestured behind him, asking everyone to evacuate quickly, even though his face twitched due to the involvement of his shoulder muscles. These people grew up in a peaceful environment under Odin's rule. They are all poultry, without fighting ability and without blood. You want a strong and iron-blooded Asgard, but these poultry are your biggest burden. Hela nodded. That makes sense. In this era, people have been away from fighting for too long, and have been infected with the virus of cowardice. Look at these guys. Hela looked around. These herbivorous sheep are not worthy of living in the city of Asgard. When the Asgardians heard Hela's loud humiliation, they clenched their fists and prepared to fight to the death. When they were about to stand up, the first princess hurriedly stopped them, and then took everyone away with a stiff face. Hela noticed that everyone left quietly. Hela shouted, stop right there. Link hurriedly said, let them go. They are not worthy of being your subjects. Let them make room for the sacred goddess of death in the huge Asgard, and you can stuff tens of millions of troops. Hela was a little moved, so she acquiesced to these Asgardians leaving. The first princess and Zelda were commanding quickly. Rogers and Natasha looked strange. Soon, Hela's expression changed. No. How could she easily listen to Link's words? So she stared coldly at Link, who was provoked by her two black crystals, and asked, that boy will definitely fight to the death with me. You are not Link. Who are you? Link smiled strangely, and then the disguise on his face disappeared, and Loki's face appeared. God of mischief. Thor opened his eyes wide. Loki smiled painfully. Hela, my stupid sister. Do you know that there is a sniper watching you all the time? Hela was furious. Look at me, tear you apart, release. At this time, the brewing of the Washan Princess and the Twilight Princess ended. One of them held a bow, and the other turned the sword in his hand into an arrow of light, and pulled the bowstring. Swish. A light arrow of the two people flew away. Hela lost consciousness and her body was pierced. The light power with completely opposite attributes to her invaded her body, making it temporarily difficult for her to move. Thor's restraints were removed, and he rushed over and grabbed Loki, who fell from the black crystal, and hurriedly rolled away. Oh. Hulk and Tony, wearing an anti-Hulk device, ran out of the spark circle, and the two punched at the same time, knocking Hela away again. Tony yelled, evacuate. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 472, Breaking the Limits of the Hylians. It turned out that the real Link had already fainted and was brought into the spark circle by Fang. Strange looked at the unconscious Link and said, when will Link wake up? Navi shook her head, with a glow on her body. I don't know. He left because of overuse and fell into severe exhaustion. We have to wait for him to recover. Strange looked at the rampant Hela inside the spark circle. It's a bit difficult for the other people to resist Hela. Just then, we haven't played yet. Let me see what kind of person Thor's sister is. Tony and Banner came over, both with serious expressions. Behind them followed the panting Quicksilver. Banner and Tony looked at each other. Let's go. Midona shouted. Wait. Tony stared at Midona. What are you waiting for? Wait for Hela to start the massacre and cause real casualties? Midona looked surprised and pointed at Loki pretending to be Link in the spark circle. Loki is helping us delay time. Look, two Zeldas are brewing an attack on the platform. Tony turned on the far-sighted mode of his dark glasses and saw the warrior princess and twilight princess pulling the bow of light. The data obtained by the simple analysis of the glasses showed that the energy contained in the two princesses was very terrifying. Midona looked at Link, who was in a coma due to severe overdrawn energy, and gritted her teeth. Hela's life is connected to Asgard. Asgard is not destroyed. Hela will not die. On the contrary, as time goes by, Hela's power will become stronger. Strange was shocked and said, are we fighting an opponent that we can't beat at all? Midona said in a deep voice, no. There is no unbeatable enemy in this world. It's just that we can't do it now. After Zelda and the others injure Hela, Tony, Banner and you will have a short and excellent attack time. According to Link's previous thinking, don't try to defeat Hela, but knock her away. The farther the better. Give the Asgardians time to escape. Tony and Banner understood. When everyone saw that Loki was tortured by the angry Hela for covering, everyone's attitude towards Loki changed. Banner said sincerely, in fact, I didn't trust Loki very much before, and I always felt that he would betray me. Now I think I was wrong. Tony touched his nose, his eyes calm. That's right. Peppa's vision is still good. Loki is still useful, at least for Loki. I have to blast Hela out of the Milky Way. The plan went smoothly. The unparalleled Princess Twilight Princess injured Hela, and Tony and Banner immediately used their greatest strength to blast Hela into the sky. Heimdall loudly commanded everyone to flee to the spark circle. Zelda, on the other hand, was eager to find Link. Zelda knelt on the ground and gently held Link's head. Feeling the unconscious will in Link's mind, she was relieved. Fang touched Zelda gently with her claws, and she asked about Link's situation pitifully. Zelda forced a smile, picked up Yaya and said, Link is fine. He just fell into hibernation. Maybe he will wake up in a minute, or maybe he won't wake up in 30 years. Mipha was shocked. How is that possible? Zelda sighed softly. It's Link's body protecting him. Just like Link died in battle 100 years ago, and that time was even worse. He hibernated for a whole 100 years. Thinking of the 100 years that Link had been in a coma, the scene was silent. Tony freed himself from his anti-Hulk weapons and jumped down. He heard what Zelda said and looked back into the circle of sparks. That is to say, if Hela attacks again, we will lose our strongest force. Zelda nodded. That's right. We can only pray that Link wakes up soon. The first princess looked at Link's unconscious face, gently leaned over, and touched Link's forehead with her lips. She said firmly, at present, all personnel have been evacuated from Asgard. We will settle them in Sky King City first. Strange said, there is no other place to put them. No country can accept so many aliens appearing out of thin air. The first princess looked at Tony. You guys prepare for war. Hela will soon sweep the earth. We must be prepared as soon as possible. The first princess hugged Zelda and reminded, Link is in your hands. Remember to call him continuously to speed up his awakening process. After a pause, the first princess continued seriously, although Link is unconscious, this is not a bad result. Thor and Loki came over, supporting each other. Thor's voice was hoarse. Why? The first princess looked at Link with a smile. I have noticed some clues. I just checked Link's physical condition and found that he is full of energy, very healthy, and even his spirit is very strong. He doesn't look like a person who is exhausted at all. I guess he must have reached a critical point because of the fight with Hela and is breaking through the limit of his body. The Sky Princess tilted her head in confusion. Physical limit? The first princess eyes were bright. Yes. Although Link's strength has been increasing, his physique is still at the limit level of aliens, and his physical strength is difficult to improve further. The huge pressure this time an immortal enemy has brought a great shock to Link, and his body is also coping with the pressure, and some changes have occurred. I can feel this sign. She smiled and said to everyone, in other words, once Link wakes up again, we will usher in a brand new Link, a Link who is completely new in all aspects, a Link who has broken through the limit of aliens. By then, defeating Hela will not be impossible. Banner laughed and said, break through the limits of the aliens? What will they become? Gods? The first princess said firmly, it's not clear. Link used to be just a playful and energetic boy. After the appearance of the Demon King Ganon, he was given the important task of responding to the Demon King, so a boy became a hero. It was because of Ganon that Link became what he is today. The mission made him undergo a qualitative change. When he accepted his mission, he was destined to be extraordinary. And now, this boy has been given the important task of defeating God. How will he be changed? Let us wait and see. The first princess patted Navi and asked her to take out the Master Sword and the ancient hero sword from Link's weapon space. The first princess held one in her hand and handed one to the Washan princess. It's so heavy, but when you have the determination to pick it up, you can still pick it up. Faye floated out sullenly and said, "No, this is an item that belongs to our Lord Link. Zelda is just borrowing it." The first generation princess glanced at everyone. The hero is asleep, but the battle continues. The 5 of us princesses will be responsible for liberating the other 2 beasts. You will be responsible for holding up the defense line against Hela. Welcome to vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 473, Tempering the Body and Soul. Link was in a coma. This was not the first time he had been in a coma. The last time he was in a coma lasted for 100 years. But this time was slightly different. He did not dream for 100 years, but could clearly feel that his will was trapped in his body. Hela. He struggled desperately, trying to regain control of his body and open his eyes. After all, a battle was waiting for him. But he seemed to be floating in an endless universe, with his limbs unable to touch the ground. This feeling of powerlessness made Link very uncomfortable. "Link." Came a faint call. The voice was extremely familiar, and Link turned around. He saw a tall and strong old man with white hair and beard. The old man was dressed like a tramp, leaning on a wooden stick. He was floating on a piece of broken wood. He looked at Link calmly. Link was shocked. This is Zelda's father, the late King of Hyrule. Link tried hard to swim over, but failed. King Hyrule said, "You don't have to come here. We don't belong to the same world. What's wrong with you? Can't you control your body?" King Hyrule stood up and walked towards Link, stepping on the void step by step. Link was surprised. King Hyrule smiled faintly. "Are you surprised? Of course you can walk on the void, but you just need to master the skills." He came to Link, patted Link's shoulder gently, and said, "My child, you have worked hard for so many years. And Zelda, you have lived up to my expectations." Link didn't know what to say for a while. He met King Hyrule in the coma world. What was going on? King Hyrule smiled and said, "It was the goddess Hylia who woke me up. She told me that you need some help. You want to regain control of your body, right? I can help you." Link nodded hurriedly. He hated coma. King Hyrule took out a dark brown baked apple from his shabby pocket. Link sniffed his nose and immediately smelled the sweet aroma of the baked apple. This was also the first food he had eaten after 100 years of sleep. King Hyrule said, "Eat this apple. It contains the power of Goddess Hylia, which can rebuild your body." But Link hesitated. He was a little annoyed by the inexplicable test from Goddess Hylia last time. When he heard that the late King Hyrule was awakened by Goddess Hylia, he wondered if this was another test. Seeing Link's doubtful expression, King Hyrule smiled, threw the baked apple to Link casually, then stepped on the void again, returned to the broken wood, and sat down tiredly. It seemed that walking a few steps had overdrawn all of King Hyrule's physical strength. He said in a deep voice, "You guessed right, this is a test. This baked apple is baked with the original fire of the beginning of heaven and earth. It has the property of burning impurities in the body, which can allow your body to break through the limits of the Hylians. But the disadvantage is also the same. The strange temperature on the baked apple will burn your whole body, and even your soul will be burned. Are you willing to take this risk? If not, just throw away this baked apple. However, if you don't want to, your body will sleep for a long time in this overdraft before it can recover." Link's eyes condensed. Time. He doesn't have time now. Compared with the burning body of the flames, Zelda's unprotectedness is more unbearable for him. King Hyrule looked at Link deeply and said, "To be honest, what you need is rest. Your body is very tired. The battles have been consuming you invisibly. You are already very exhausted now. Now you forcing yourself to break through will only burn yourself. You need to stop." Link listened to the persuasion of King Hyrule and laughed dryly in his heart. Link knew his physical condition very well, but he had no choice. His body needed to rest, but Link had to participate in the battle with Hela. He fought hard with Hela, and so far, not a single death had occurred. This was the result of his efforts. As long as there were still people who needed his protection, Link would not rest. He took a bite of the apple, and the wrinkled baked apple immediately turned into a beam of red light, pouring into Link's throat, and being absorbed by Link's body. HMM. Link groaned in pain, and the heat and pain all over his body almost tore him apart. This kind of pain had no prelude, sweeping over like the wind. The first second of the attack almost crushed Link's spirit. He couldn't help but curl up his body, as if he had returned to the state of a baby. The body burned with red flames, and Link's internal organs were clearly visible, all in a state of burning. The surrounding space was distorted like water waves. Link's surroundings were in an extremely high temperature state, and he gritted his teeth to endure it. King Hyrule looked deeply at Link, who was a ball of fire. Link's spasms and tremors were clearly visible, which made Hyrule's expression seem as if his heart was choking in his throat. Even if Link was as strong-willed as he was, this burning from the inside out, from the body to the depths of the soul, was unbearable. This far exceeded the limit of human will. Link, hold on. Everyone needs you. King Hyrule couldn't help shouting. With a burning light flashing in his eyes, he stood up gently, and a ray of light was released from his body, transforming into the goddess Hylia. It turned out that King Hyrule was just a disguise of the goddess Hylia. Time passed slowly. What the goddess Hylia was worried about happened. Although Link tried his best to resist and endure, his soul activity was still rapidly decreasing. His vitality was getting weaker and weaker. Goddess Hylia bit her lip worriedly. She knew that this couldn't go on. Just as she was about to reach out and wipe away the flames and high energy on Link's body. But suddenly she found that Link's soul suddenly stabilized again. Link, hold on, it's okay. Link. Goddess Hylia heard a series of voices coming from Zelda's murmurs. As she looked, she was shocked to find that on Link's painfully curled body, there was a shadow of Zelda, hugging him tightly. This faint and invisible shadow of Zelda ignited the flames on Link's body to herself. In this way, Link's pain was also shared. In the real space, Zelda also hugged Link tightly, and when everyone was busy, she kept calling Link softly. Just like she kept calling Link to wake up 100 years later. Her face was pale, and her hair was wet and stuck to her cheeks. It was not easy to share the joys and sorrows with Link. Zelda felt that her whole body was burning, and the piercing pain almost made her crazy. But, in this world, the only one who could help Link share this pain was Princess Zelda, who had been entangled with Ganon alone for 100 years without stopping. Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Thank you to Mr. Zai Ming for supporting 100 starting coins. Thank you to Lost Cube for supporting 100 starting coins. Chapter 474, The Holy Body is Forged and Hela attacks. This kind of suffering is indeed unbearable for one person, even if he is as strong as Link. But now there is Zelda to share Link's pain, so there is a possibility. Zelda's calls are also transmitted to Link's heart, making Link glow with new strength. Goddess Hylia witnessed Link's soul suddenly become stronger and release more vigorous waves. The original fire was extinguished. Link and Zelda's souls were charred, just like the appearance of magma after cooling. But soon there was a crack, and cracks appeared in the shell, and golden light appeared in the cracks. Crack. The charred shell on their bodies completely shattered and fell off, revealing Link and Zelda's real bodies. Their bodies were white, as if they were made of blazing gold. Goddess Hylia took a deep breath. Zelda and Link, their bodies and even souls, have broken through the scope of human beings. Link's limit will never end in the future. Goddess Hylia smiled slightly, and her body turned into countless light particles and disappeared. The battle in the real world is still going on. The first princess wields the Master Sword and fights against the fire disaster Ergonon. Ergonon erupts with the power of a volcano. The sky and the earth change color. The air around is filled with rich fire element, and the first princess skirt is burning. But she doesn't care. Her eyes are as firm as a diamond, and she wields the sword. Her sword skills are far less refined than the Washang princess, but the vigorous fighting spirit and confidence inside her urge her delicate body to endure the suppression of the master sword and launch attacks again and again. The Sky Princess waved her hand, and the flames on the first princess skirt were immediately extinguished by the power of the stars. The Sky Princess did not help the first princess too much. Her hands were always clasped in front of her chest, brewing strength. The first princess tried to help her delay time. Go. It's time. The Sky Princess focused her eyes, and her two slender hands formed a diamond shape, which shot into the sky like a huge projector. A huge image was formed in the air. A tall masked female angel, holding a sword and shield, shouted and swung at Disaster Ganon. This was the ultimate move that the Sky Princess had been practicing hard for a long time. Heavenly Execution. Disaster Ganon was startled, and the Heavenly Execution slashed down with a sword, and the aura of the lofty spread out. Even he felt afraid. So he felt fear in his heart, and wanted to escape. Stay here. The first generation princess suddenly burst into an offensive, holding Disaster Ganon tightly. Heavenly Execution slashed Ganon's back, and the hideous Demon King's body was split in half, revealing the dark core in the center. The first generation princess mustered up the last bit of strength and stabbed the core with a sword. Only the sword of the brave can defeat the Demon King. Link fell asleep, and someone else had to take up the heavy responsibility again. The first generation princess' shoulders rose and fell. She was not good at fighting, and she almost fought against Disaster Ganon with an attitude of death. And the courage to risk her life was fulfilled at this moment. The Sky Princess rushed into the fire beasts to search, and immediately found Darkle's rock-crushing giant sword. She asked Pepper, who followed her, to help carry it out. Then she helped the first princess, and everyone entered Strange's space spark circle, and returned to the Avengers base. Strange looked at the two exhausted girls and the Pepper, and admired them. He said softly, "You did a great job." The first princess' hair was messy, and she asked, "How is Link?" Strange said, "He hasn't woken up yet." The first princess gritted her teeth and tried to support her tired body. She still had other tasks to do. Pepper looked at Strange with admiration and said, you know, the princess is so handsome. Two people fought such a powerful Demon King. They won. Super awesome." Strange smiled softly. "Yes, they are amazing." Due to Link's overprotection, the image of the princesses has always been presented to everyone as the weak posture of the protected. Strange was originally worried that Link's coma would make the princesses fall into a state of panic. Unexpectedly, the opposite happened. Ugh. With a cry of surprise, Washang Princess, Twilight Princess and Midona also jumped out of another spark circle, and the three girls fell together. Washang Princess's beautiful face was covered in dirt, and Twilight Princess's hair was also burned again. Obviously, they had suffered a lot. But Midona was holding two weapons tightly in her arms, the Seven Treasures sword and the Seven Treasures shield. This showed their results. The first generation princess panted and smiled. "You also succeeded. It's really hard for you. That's the most difficult thunder beast to deal with. Thunder Disaster Ganon is the strongest one among them, with lightning and extremely fast speed." So the first generation princess asked Washang Princess to match Twilight Princess, one with the strongest attack and the other with the strongest combat power to deal with it. Even so, the first generation princess was still unsure. But unexpectedly, the two princesses were very competitive and won the victory from the thunder cannon that even Link was afraid of. It's hard to imagine how much effort they put in. She turned to Mythra and said, "Please, activate the four beasts. Only then can we have the ability to resist Hela." Strange hurriedly asked the four heroes to come in front of him and was about to teleport the four heroes to the bodies of the four beasts. The first generation princess suddenly felt cold all over and saw a rainbow bridge crashing in front of the Avengers base. A huge wolf jumped out of it, and Hela sat calmly on it. Behind them, there was a large number of zombies holding ancient weapons, and a vicious and oppressive atmosphere rushed over. Rogers rushed out of the war room and shouted loudly, "Avengers, get ready to fight." Tony threw his glasses hard. "Damn. It's almost there." Immediately, the Iron Man suit covered his body, crashed through the wall, and flew out. Behind him was the Mad Hulk. Seeing this, Strange quickly turned on the spark ring, and his arms quickly moved in the air, but he could only see sparks, not rings. Hela sneered at Strange. There are wizards on Earth too? Your space magic is pretty good. But, she threw up a light blue cube in her hand. Natasha shook her head. The cosmic cube. The space stone. Hela has blocked this space. The first princess once again struggled to lift the master sword, and dragged it towards Hela. The peerless princess and the twilight princess looked at each other, and shining longbows appeared in their hands at the same time. One was energy and the other was a physical object. Tony stood high in the sky, pointed at Hela and said, "This is my territory. You, who came in without swiping your card, are not following the rules. Get out of here." Hela grinned and said, "Disrespectful to God. Well, today I will detain all the people on Earth as my slaves. My undead army, start the war." Welcome to Vote and subscribe to support genuine works. Chapter 475 The Princess's Battle. Link returns. Hulk rushed forward with a ferocious green face and roared. Hela smiled contemptuously. "Who is this green guy?" "Fenrir, this guy's your dinner." Fenrir showed his white wolf teeth and rushed towards Hulk. He knocked Hulk over, and the two rolled into a ball. Rogers raised his hands. "Fight." He quickly rushed towards Hela, and the large number of undead legions behind Hela also roared with weapons in hand, carrying Lynn's suffocating momentum. Snap. Rogers kicked an undead soldier away, threw away his shield, and cut another undead soldier in half. Beside him, an undead soldier quietly came over, raised his axe, and looked at him, his withered mouth cracked wide open. Rogers looked at him coldly, and then the undead soldier's cry turned into a scream, and a sharp blade stretched out from his chest. The undead soldier fell, revealing Natasha's figure. Natasha raised her hair. Sneak attack. This is what I'm best at. Behind Natasha, Vision and Scarlet Witch flew towards the army of the undead. After Quicksilver knocked over 3 undead soldiers in a row, he came to Natasha and said, "My sister said that she and Vision have a large-scale combo skill." Scarlet Witch stretched out her hands, and the Scarlet power spilled out. A large number of undead soldiers rushed over, and were squeezed into a ball by the invisible force and floated up. Vision flew high in the air, and a beam of light shot out from his head. Bang! Directly detonated a large number of undead soldiers. The two girls clapped their hands happily. Great. Tony stared at Hela with a serious look. The two-leg thrusters accelerated, intending to capture the thief first, and hit Hela directly. But Pepper suddenly blocked in front of him. Tony shouted, "Pepper, get out of the way, protect yourself." Pepper stretched out his hands and shook his head. "No." The princess asked Pepper to fight the soldiers with you. Tony shouted, "What about Hela?" Pepper scratched his head. "They said they would handle it themselves." Tony said angrily, "Nonsense. I can't let Link wake up and find that his beloved Zelda is missing a few." Pepper also became serious. "Tony, obey the princess's orders." Tony sighed and said to Pepper, "Forget it. I'll listen to you. I'll keep an eye on Hela. Let's go." He took Pepper's little hand, and the two Iron Men, one big and one small, bombarded the soldiers under them. Thor looked at the scene of the battle outside the window, and began to struggle. "Let me up. I want to fight." Dr. Zeo stopped Thor and shouted, "Calm down. I will soon heal your abdominal injury." Sif had just settled the Asgardians in the Sky King city, and saw a large army of undead appear above the Sky King city. Sif gritted her teeth. "Warriors of Asgard. All the men of Asgard, prepare for battle." Heimdall raised his great sword, and knocked over 5 undead soldiers directly, his dark golden eyes wide open. "Don't even think about killing a civilian." Seeing the flames of war everywhere, Hela felt a surge of blood in her heart. She felt that her rusty body was recovering rapidly, because she had been sealed for too long. She also wanted to have a grand battle. Watching the 4 Zeldas quickly pierce through the undead soldiers and rush in front of her, Hela smiled slightly. "Very good. You remind me of the Valkyries of the past." The unparalleled princess jumped in the sky, twisted her waist, and the sword in her hand, cut a large sword light, immediately killed a wave of undead soldiers. Hela grinned. "The Valkyries of the past all died at my hands." She shouted, "My minions, retreat. Leave me room to fight." This group of brainless, and particularly obedient undead soldiers dispersed one after another. A large open space flowed out around Hela. The first princess said to Faye, "Please, Cooperate with me. It's hard to use you like this. Faye was also trying to adapt to the power of the first princess. Faye said, you can only use 1/10 of the power of the Master Sword. This is when I fully cooperate with you. Midona also transformed into a charming adult woman with cyan skin. Ether particles flowed in her hands, and she looked at Hela coldly. This annoying woman, the space stone will make her run around. I will use my infinity stone to deal with her infinity stone. Hela sneered, the power of the infinity stone. I don't care. The smile on her face disappeared immediately, and she rushed like a hummingbird, waving her hand and shooting out 50 black blades. The princesses stared at each other. Twilight Princess bit her silver teeth and moved her bowstring slightly. A series of light arrows like streamers shot out. Hela's blade and Twilight light arrow collided with each other. The first princess and Washang princess, dragging the master sword and the sword of the ancient warrior, stood with Hela. Hela laughed loudly and moved between the two princesses like a ghost. What a swordsmanship. Hearing Hyeon's teasing, the Sky Princess immediately clasped her hands together and flew away with a dual star system. The first princess slightly leaned forward and the sword blade spurted upwards. The Washang princess immediately rushed to Hela in front of her, shaking her wrist and picking out a series of sword flowers. Hela dodged and blocked to the right, easily breaking the princess's joint attack. Immediately retreating, a black crystal sword blade was thrown behind her, and the other particles that Midona sneaked up were scattered. Midona exclaimed, the other particles were actually destroyed? Hela suddenly approached and stabbed Midona with a sword. The Washang princess gritted her teeth and followed up, and the sword of the ancient hero in her hand hit Hela's back like raindrops. She suddenly saw a disgusting scene. Princess Washang stabbed Hyeon's back, but could not cause damage to the inside of his body. From the wound she stabbed, a large number of black crystal thorns emerged, stabbing like a swarm of bees. Princess Washang was shocked, and hurriedly blocked the move with clang 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 clang. The water in the sword dance of the braid in her hand could not be splashed. Hela slapped Midona away with the palm, then turned around and lifted her hands from bottom to top. A black crystal like the top of a mountain broke out of the ground. Princess Washang had no time to dodge. She saw the first generation princess hurriedly following behind her, throwing a sword and stabbing half of Hela's face, which stopped the impact of the black crystal like the top of a mountain. The first generation princess grabbed Princess Washang's waist and the two quickly retreated. But Hela's face was stabbed by the master sword, and blood flowed all over her face. Hela's eyes were full of anger, and she let out a long roar. A shadow of a demon's face shook out of her body and suddenly spread out. The princesses were shaken away and fell to the ground vomiting blood. Hela raised her sword high. I don't want to play with you anymore. Die. At this time, a bright red motorcycle knocked over the undead army and rushed over quickly. Everyone, we are coming. Zelda hugged Link's waist tightly, waved her hand and shouted. Link's hair was straightened at high speed. He closed one eye and stretched out one hand like counting money. Bang! A bolt of lightning struck Hela. Hela flew backwards. The princesses became excited and called out in unison, Link. Welcome to vote and subscribe to support genuine works. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.